just a couple of guys, a couple of microphones, and a heck of a lot of know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
What they say, it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, of course. Alongside of me is Mr. Joe Talkin.
What's going on, Know-It-Alls? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. Ready to go here, giving you that NFL dosage every week. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, if you're new to the show, welcome aboard. Become a know-it-all, and you can do that by simply just heading over to YouTube for us. Hit that subscribe button while you're there. Hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to comment down below, because if you comment down below, we're going to give you a shout-out. You're a part of the team. Jump onto the starting lineup and be involved, because this is the best NFL talk and the most interactive talk show you're going to find. And we want to prove that to you guys out there. So let's go, guys. Let's go.
Hell yeah, Joe. We're amped up. We're excited. We got done doing a show last night. We're still feeling the reverberations from that and everything, talking hot seats and stuff like that. So NFL's getting crazy right now. We can't believe it's already week 7 coming up, man.
Dude,
it's just flying
almost
right
at the
by.
midway
right?
point. Almost.
Nuts. But Joe, yeah, so you know it's coming up. The big trades that just happened recently, Amari Cooper and, Devonta Adams here. We're going to do some trade talk in just a little bit here. We've got Bleacher Report came up with their big board, the big board trade, block, I think they even call it. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. But first, let's talk about, the fall meetings here. They had a few different conversations. They went up for the voting here for Tom Brady to have partial ownership of the Raiders. And he showed up at the building, for the Raider Nation out there. And then they heard that they have big plans for Tom Brady there for the Raiders already.
That's right. And that's the thing, too, about Tom Brady. Now has 5% ownership. And apparently, from what Mark Davis has said, is that he's going to be a bigger part of the decision-making process, handling the everyday operations. Definitely going to be involved in decision-making going forward, and might even be part of the whole quarterback search that they've been having a problem with. Now,
wow. Yeah.
I don't know how much Tom Brady's going to have input, because the guy's never scouted other players.
Right.
The guy's never drafted a single person, so there's no track record there.
Yeah.
So they're just going based off of how successful he was as a player and hoping that it rubs off on finding a quarterback.
Right, imagine him sitting in the interview room. He's like, all right, let's see. Do you eat avocado ice cream? No. Okay. Do you take care of your body?
That's a red flag.
Do you do
Red
this?
flag.
Have you used the TB12 program?
That's
nope.
right.
I just don't think you're a fit here. Let's just end this now.
No.
Yeah, so who knows? Who knows what will happen? But exciting stuff for the Raiders there moving forward. And now, so now he can't do any of the broadcast for those Raiders games then too. Now he's part of the ownership, right? So he wouldn't be involved. Can't go into the opposite, teams, game planning and things like that, right?
He can't. There are limitations now that he is officially an owner, or a partial owner, I should say. One, he is now he's like kind of grandfathered in as the son of Mark Davis. I'm pretty sure that Mark Davis is going to eventually adopt Tom Brady, because he is so close to him that it's almost like that's how he treats it, like father-son relationship. And I wouldn't be shocked if at the end of the road for Mark, he just signs over majority ownership to Tom Brady. To take over
right.
the Raiders.
That's it. He
It
writes them
seems
into the will or something.
It just seems so odd.
Yeah,
That's kind of like what it is. He's like in love with the dude. So, but yeah, like I don't know. We'll see how this all shakes out for the Raiders, and see if it does help them make better decisions, because they definitely need it. They need someone that can make good decisions, because so far, the GM that was hired there this year to make those better decisions has been making terrible ones thus far. So Raiders not on the upswing at all as of right now. Hopefully they can turn the corner maybe next season or so.
All right. Some of the other things, too, they had talked about potentially next year changing the kickoff rules again, to now where if you get a touchback, now it's going to get potentially moved up to the 35-yard line to try and stop teams from kicking. And there's a lot of touchbacks here this season now. Everybody's just kicking in the end zone and not risking the return. So they want to try and bring some of that excitement back into it. And, their little experiment has worked so far. They've claimed too, is they said that I think injuries are down like 90% or something like that, and concussions especially, and MCL and ACL injuries too are down. So that's working there and keeping it safe for everybody. But they are getting more returns too out of it. So their plan had worked. Now they're looking to try and get more returns.
Well,
out of it by moving the ball up to the 35 now, I think so.
There hasn't been a large amount upswing in returns. Like there's been
a few.
There's been more than last year, but that's not saying much because everybody's going to kick it through the end zone to get that touchback.
Yeah.
Just because you moved it up to the 30-yard line is where you're going to get it. Doesn't deter them. They're like, okay, fine, no return, we're good with it. Especially when you're kicking off to a really good returner, you don't want to give them an opportunity to. So let's just kick it through we'll give up that 30-yard line starting point, and we'll live with it. So and that's kind of been the game plan this whole season for a lot of teams. Now, there's been some teams that have kind of played with the idea of like kicking it kind of just shy of the goal line and then seeing where we could tackle the receiving team. But it's not a success as far as what I'm seeing. Like this is why I've made the statement even last night on our show about how I like college football better right now, because college football, they still keep it the traditional way. They kick it off just like normal, and you have these like sometimes you have these big massive returns, and it's more exciting, and every single time, whether it's the start of the game or the start of the half, like you got these kickoffs and in between with their scoring, it just makes it a better game and more entertaining to watch. So the NFL, I still believe, needs to get back to that. Like that's what this game has always been. So I understand you're trying to make it safer, but at the same time, you're also taking away from the excitement and what fans tune in to see. We like the hard hits. Sometimes a guy's going to get injured because of a hard hit or an awkward landing, when they come down with the football as a receiver, or things happen. Like injuries are part of this game. The players understand that. They know it. That's why the NFL teams pay them millions of dollars to play this game, is because they have a crap ton of money to do that. Ticket sales, memorabilia, everything that goes into the NFL for each team. It's all big time revenue. The NFL, all of that. They're all making money. Oodles and oodles of money. And now you're having these contracts becoming bigger every single year because they can afford to pay these players. They all know the risk. They signed up for it, and that's why you're getting paid millions of dollars. So you need to go back to a little bit more of what the NFL was to kind of get that excitement back, especially when it comes to kickoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And you talk about even injuries, and they can afford some of that stuff. But the hip drop tackle, that was one of the things that they talked about last year, to where now they can make it a penalty. And we haven't seen any penalties thrown, any flags thrown on any of them. And we've seen it multiple times. There's been, I think the number is 7 players have been actually fined for the hip drop tackle here, but we haven't seen any flags thrown during the game. And to one, one that everybody points out that knows about is the Joe Mixon one, to where he's been injured for multiple weeks now, and he's voiced his opinion to the NFL about it and said, this is ridiculous too, and the NFL's like, well, it didn't meet the 4-point criteria that meets a hip drop tackle. So what are you talking about? So this is the thing. They try to make a rule against something, and then they never call it, or it's never overturned, things like that. They did the same thing with the pass interference. Like, all right, fine. You guys want to throw, we can review pass interference? We'll review pass interference. And then when they do, they're like, Yeah, the call still stands. Doesn't matter. Bye. It's a joke. But people are still getting injured here. And if you're finding somebody, there had to have been something there. So what do you consider that? What's the fine for then if it isn't a penalty, right? I say I don't get that. So the fact that they're not really cracking down on this, and this was supposed to be about for player safety, and especially like a guy like Joe Mixon, that's a big focal point, major piece of the Houston Texans right now. A star, you know what I mean? And that's the thing, you want to see the stars on the field and not being injured like this, and that's what this, I think, rule was set in place for. So I think that one they should really try and tighten up and really enforce.
Yeah, I mean, of course you want to see the stars out there. Of course you want to see the high flying offense or the daunting defense, playing every single week at full capacity. That is a dream world that we live in, that we're hoping that we can somehow find a way to make the game safer, but also keep the same intensity and the excitement that it's supposed to have. Sorry, you can't have it both ways. You can't make the game super safe and it still be as exciting as it once was. It's just not, it's not sustainable at all. So, I mean, I understand that they're trying to make the game safe, but the NFL themselves have also been shooting themselves in the foot. They claim that they're going to come down hard on hip drop tackles. Well, the epitome of a hip drop tackle is what happened to Joe Mixon. And Joe Mixon basically called out the player that did it to him. And the NFL, no fine to be seen. No flags were thrown at the time of the hip drop tackle. And even after the game, no suspensions were given. So NFL, if you're claiming that you're going to try to make the game safe and you're going to punish those that don't keep it safe in your terminology, then where's the penalties? Where's the suspension? Where's everything that you promised? It hasn't shown up. And there are times when guys are not performing a hip drop tackle and they're getting fined. So this is outrageous. The NFL's doing a absolutely horrible job of dictating the penalties. And now even in the last couple of weeks, if you noticed, if you're paying any kind of attention to the NFL doling out fines, they're doling out fines in record fashion the last couple of weeks. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to all these different players out there throughout the league. And most of them, honestly, are absolutely ridiculous, the fines that they're receiving. They fined, I can't even remember the player right now off the top of my head, but they fined a player for a helmet-to-helmet hit. And I went back and looked at the replay. The exact replay, and it wasn't helmet to helmet. It was close, but it wasn't helmet to helmet. And the guy got fined. And it's just not right. Like, unless you're going to do your due diligence and really study the film and dish out these fines, respectively and accordingly, you shouldn't be doing it at all because you're not doing a good enough job. It's just like when we talked about in the recent past as the season started, we talked about Rashee Rice. Does he deserve to be out there on the field because of that heinous accident that he was involved in, the fact that he ran from the scene and all this thing? And then he's still dealing with that court case right now. That's not gone away. But the NFL didn't touch him. Even though that there was multiple vehicles involved, there were a couple of younger kids involved in that accident. Some people sustained injuries, and they didn't make that a big deal. They kind of swept that under the rug, kept it real quiet, and they're like, well, we're not going to dish out any penalties or suspensions until the case is ended, but you're still going to allow him to play. Okay. Then there was players like Michael Thomas, who, because of something that transpired, a court case that transpired a year ago, they suspended him, who's not even on a team right now. He's a free agent. They suspended him a game already. So it's really messed up on how the NFL is working, or dictating, I should say, their penalties, their suspensions, and they pick and choose who they do it to whenever they feel like.
Yeah, that is kind of funny too. And like you said, it goes from the hip drop thing to where it's ridiculous fines about other stuff though too, like to where the touchdown celebrations now, you get fined for doing finger guns. You know what I mean?
Yeah, come on,
like simulating like a shooting thing because they don't want to set the wrong example for everybody, and they on this and that. And it's like, no, you guys, guns are bad.
You know what my favorite celebration is?
What? Like pretty soon, like you know how everybody's doing the first down to the whole archery thing.
All
like they're
ones.
just like,
come on,
he's attempting to shoot a bow at someone. That is violence. That has no need to be on the television. Now let's get back to some bone crushing, gridiron sacks and people hitting guys. You know what I mean?
You know what my favorite celebration is though?
What's a favorite celebration?
My favorite one is Tyreek Hill's. When he burns everybody and throws up the peace sign. Like, dude, that to me, that's not, it's harmless. Like, okay, is he taunting a little bit? You could view it as that, but still, it's for fun. It's playful.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? But they penalize people for it now. Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like you're taking a little bit of the fun out of the game, and taunting and trash talking is a part of the game.
Yeah.
Whether you in high school football or you in college or even when you're in pros, it's part of it.
Yep.
So it's like, I just think that the NFL is becoming too involved in the sport, whether it be suspensions, fines, or even now they're starting to like say, oh, let's come up with a new rule for this and let's come up with a new rule for that. It seems like every single year they try out some kind of new rule, some gimmicky rule, that whether it was in the XFL they saw it happen or in college or whatever, and 9 times out of 10 they don't work out. They just don't. And I even heard a rumor a couple years ago that they were even contemplating adopting the college football 1 foot in bounds rule.
Wow.
Which I was like, you can't go backwards.
No, you can't go backwards. So like, let's just make it
all
easier
of a sudden
for
make
everybody,
it
right?
really easy to throw it on the sidelines or in the back of the end zone. All you got to do is have one.
Right.
That's easy for NFL players now.
Yeah.
So
now you won't even have a divisional champion anymore. You'll just have everybody will get participation trophies.
I think honestly, I think college ranks.
That way the Carolina Panthers feel good.
I think the NCAA, I know they've always had that kind of 1 foot in bounds thing, but I think to help prepare some of these athletes from college, they should make it 2 feet in, not just 1 foot, because there's a lot of touchdowns I've seen where he got 1 foot in, it's a touchdown. Like, but in the NFL, that's not going to happen.
That's not going to work. Yeah. So why not? You're training them so early on to be in the NFL. Like, why allow that to happen? When you get into that level,
right on.
Especially if it's like a starting point before you get into the NFL. So
yeah,
a lot of that's ridiculous. So meetings, we'll see what happens. What turns up with some of that stuff. But like I said, I think for me, the most egregious one was the whole hip drop tackle to where people are actually getting injured, where you said it was going to be a penalty. Nobody's penalized, in the game with a flag, but, there's fines. So, either the referees don't know what a hip drop tackle is then, and the NFL
they don't care
does, or they just don't care to, you know what I mean? So
my problem too with these new rules and everything, it always seems to go against the defense. And
right.
This year, like they started to attack the offense this year because now they're making putting a stronger emphasis on the tackles being lined up correctly on the center's waistline. Either helmet being too far back. They're starting to throw more penalties for that, and rightfully so. But my thing is, it shouldn't be a new thing to concentrate on. It's part of the game where you should call a penalty when you see it, regardless. It seems like every year the NFL makes a stronger emphasis on one rule over another, or another rule that they haven't really focused on. And it's like, why are you focusing on just that rule now? It should be every single game, every snap. You guys should, your job as refs is to keep the game as level as possible, not get it one-sided one way or the other. Call a fair game as much as you can. So, I mean, every year they bring up something and try to emphasize it every single season. It's just one of these weird things where now they're concentrating on the offensive line and the formation. Is it correct? Is it not correct? But shouldn't they be doing that anyway? You shouldn't have to say like, oh, now we're going to work on this. Like that's the thing that bothers me about the NFL. Brandon Degener is in the house. What's going on, bro? He says, facts. Defensive players are now more prone to injury due to having to reinvent the wheel on tackling by the book. Exactly. Like, this is the type of thing is, like, not only has the NFL changed how the sport is played over the years because of these new rule changes or implementing new rules altogether, but you have players now trying to figure out, okay, well, what's legal, what's not legal. When I go to approach a quarterback, which is the worst thing, you're not allowed to touch him on the helmet. You're not allowed to hit him below the waist. You're not allowed to land on top of him when you do try to sack them. Like, what do you want the defender to do?
Yeah.
They are running as hard as they can to get to the quarterback before he throws it. And now he's got to also, on the way to the quarterback, think about all these things.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to, like, hit him as hard as I can, but then catch him and lightly place him down on the ground and make sure I don't fall on him, because that could cause an injury too. So
right. You saw a little bit of that in the Giants game too, because Ojulari at one point had had Joe Burrow wrapped up and kind of just let it go because he thought they were going to blow the whistle or whatever, didn't want to hurt him, and then Joe Burrow kind of gives him a stiff and then moves away and gets rid of the ball. And
look at the Bills
and then on
Jets.
the other side in that same game though too, Brian Burns gets the sack, hits him hard, launches, gets him, but again somehow manages to avoid falling on him, because that's what they got to think of too.
Right,
so,
exactly.
You got it all in that one too.
And think about even the Bills Jets game.
Yes.
Like it was AJ Epinesa, I think, at the time when he buried Rodgers and then landed full force right on top of him.
Yep.
And that was a third and long play.
Stop. Yep.
That was going to stop them. They were going to have to punt again, and instead they get a first down because of him landing on him, which is ridiculous.
And I think they scored on that drive too.
And what's funny is that Rodgers, after the game in the presser, they asked about that play, and he thought it was bullshit. Yeah. He thought, as a quarterback who's been back in the day a little bit where quarterbacks got hit all the time, they got shoved, they got hit. He even thinks now that that rule is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I can agree. I can see him doing that. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, Brandon Degener just says, Rodgers calling out the ref saying that wasn't roughing the passer.
See, there you go.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. It's just crazy.
Nice.
It's just crazy.
Oh, yeah, definitely. All right, so I found this article here on Bleacher Report. So we're going to go take a look at this, and it's all about the trades right now, because we just saw Davante Adams now did get traded to the Jets.
Amari
Cooper now to the Bills.
Thank God
after
for the
that
Bills.
game. So they've been needing it. Who knows what will happen with the Jets too? He's got somebody now that he trusts again in his small circle, Aaron Rodgers. So there's a few that are out there. Hassan Reddick now again. He's got a new Drew Rosenhaus, right? Is
new agency. Yep,
new agent.
The Drew Rosenhaus. That's his main agent now.
Right, so now they're shopping here.
Yep.
So who knows if he'll be dealt. So
the Jets gave him permission to. The Jets gave him permission to seek a trade. So you know that the Jets are done. They're not going to try to work things out. Not going to try to work on a deal. They're just looking to move on now at this point.
Yep. All right. So Bleacher Report had made up a list here. And it would start. It looks like a top 10 list. All right. So at number 10, they've got Deontay Johnson, wide receiver for the Carolina Panthers. See potentially being on the trading block, and they named potential suitors of the Commanders and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe,
the Steelers? No, that's where he came from. Like, he's not going to go back to Pittsburgh. That makes no sense.
No.
And when the Steelers were looking and interested in another receiver, it was because they wanted Devontae. It's because they wanted someone of that caliber. They're not going to be like, oh, let's bring back Deontay Johnson, who we already know who he is. We know that he's dropped footballs when he was on this team. Why do we want to bring him back? So that to me doesn't make any sense. If Carolina, which I would find a little perplexing because he just got to the Panthers.
Yeah.
Why would he want to leave when now he's becoming a bigger part of the offense with Andy Dalton at quarterback? He's getting his flowers now. Like, he's getting the opportunities. So That doesn't make sense to me. Brandon Degener says Steelers don't want him back. He couldn't catch COVID the last few years. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny that they even put him on this list, but they've had a list of honorable mentions. You and I talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
And they even said when they've asked, Dave Canales, and he says, "Oh, we love guys that are developing here with us and stuff, and we don't see that happening at all. We're not interested in moving on with the
that just
Deontay
doesn't make
Johnson."
sense.
Well, they put it in here anyway. See, this is the thing with some of these articles.
And here's the thing: it's like when you look at Washington's roster, like they could use another wide receiver, but with Noah Brown kind of starting to ascend on that roster, Luke McCaffrey shown from time to time as a rookie has shown glimpses of becoming a decent player for them. Daomi Brown, who I think goes so far under the radar, but is a good receiver there. Terry McLaurin, we all know him. But like they could use one more receiving piece to kind of fill out the overall position. But my thing is they don't have to go for a big name. If they wanted to, and it wouldn't cost them much. Like we heard that for the Jets, Mike Williams is now on the trade block. They're going to look on to move on from him. Washington might be willing to give them a call because what the difference is, instead of Deontay Johnson, who is kind of in the form of what they already have in a Noah Brown, in a Daomi Brown, guys that are quick, fast, have, mid-size type of wide receiver. They already have that. But now you bring in a Mike Williams who's big, tall, 6'4", big, chiseled, like physical type of receiver. He gives you a different element that you could put into this offense. So that makes more sense to me to go to Washington than to add Deontay Johnson. So I don't see him going to Carolina. I don't see him being traded to Washington. If the Panthers were ever going to consider trading him, it'd be to a completely different team than what they listed.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few others there that would probably be, and I think they're only running parallels because these were also teams that were in talks about the whole Devontae Adams thing. But Devontae Adams and Deontay Johnson are in two separate levels here. So, I mean, just because one was interested in one,
it's not
doesn't
even
mean
close.
they're interested in the other. You know what I'm saying? He could potentially, but like I said, I don't think they're going to move on.
No, doesn't make sense.
Right. All right, so next, number 9, they've got Bryce Young for the Carolina Panthers. What the hell, dude? Are you serious? They're ready to move on already? To say, hey,
no,
we're going to trade him. He's going to be on the trading block. Anybody want this guy? That's funny. I can't believe they're doing this. But according to, while Carolina hasn't officially turned the page on Young, a trade feels inevitable, though an offseason deal is most likely, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Huh. That's weird,
interesting.
Though.
But why would you give up on him right now?
Right.
Like my thing is you draft. Well, okay, let's put it into perspective. Dave Canales did not draft him. He's he's a brand new head coach, a new coaching staff. So they're not tied to Byron Young, but
Bryce Young.
Yep. He's there. He's new. It's his second year. Why not try to work things out with him and try to turn the narrative on him and try to turn his skill set around to play better in the NFL, to become that starter. And if another year goes by and it doesn't work out, then I could see you moving on from him.
Yep.
Keep him in-house. He doesn't cost you anything right now.
Right.
Even though you didn't pick him, keep him in-house. Have him be part of the quarterback competition for next year.
Yes. Yep.
Even when you draft another quarterback or obtain one in free agency or trade or whatever you decide to do.
Right.
That to me makes more sense. So I don't see them moving on. Even though it's a new regime, I don't see them moving on from Bryce Young right now and only in his second year. It would actually surprise me if they do.
Yeah.
But I think what's it going to hurt? Because he's not costing you money. It's not like, oh, my God, we got to get rid of his salary. He's not playing well.
Right.
We got to move on.
Right.
He's under a rookie contract, which they're paying him nothing for a quarterback.
Yeah.
Might as well keep him in the ranks, have him still compete next season. Let Andy Dalton ride out the season this year, and then we'll figure it out, next offseason, next draft, what the Panthers want to do then.
Right. And then that's exactly, I agree with you. What you're saying here completely is he's not costing you anything. Yes, it hasn't worked out so far, but say he's not your guy.
Right.
Draft your guy potentially, have him duke it out in the offseason. One does better than the other. There you go. You're still okay. then he's dead weight. Then you can get rid of him to somebody else, And if he looks good in preseason, that's even better because that
more
makes
value.
so much more value for it than it is right now. His value is the lowest right
His
now.
value is you give him away and we'll give you a bag of popcorn. That's the trade value.
Seriously, right now. I mean, so they're saying potential suitors are the New York Jets and the Tennessee Titans right here. So
the Jets and the Titans.
The
That's
Jets
funny.
and the Titans. And again, I don't see that happening here. I don't think the Jets are going. They've shown that they can't, develop a quarterback. Why would they go and try and get another one that isn't doing well? I mean, look at Sam Darnold in a different place right now. So, Tennessee Titans again. Yeah, they've got whole other issues now. Maybe now with them,
they got to continue to build that team
and see. What happened. They maybe should have kept Malik Willis a little longer here, just to maybe have a quarterback battle. So all right, so yeah, I don't agree with the first two right away with Carolina. The thing is, Carolina, I don't think has a whole lot of trade bait right now. They're building.
They're very young.
I mean? They're young. Yeah,
they're one of the youngest teams, and they
already did last year with Brian Burns.
They pulled off a trade this year with I'm trying to remember Dante Jackson, the corner. They traded him to the Steelers. And that was a good trade for the Steelers. Obviously, they didn't want to. Maybe they didn't want to pay Dante or whatever. He wasn't going to fit into the defense, whatever the case may be. But they moved on from him. Now he's a Steeler, and it's worked out for both sides. But for Carolina, they're such a young team. They need to continue to build this roster around somebody, and that's going to be the big question mark going into next offseason is. Are they going to continue to work with Bryce Young to be a starter, or at the very least bring in some more competition and may the best man win?
Yeah. I mean, it could be here. Next year, number 8, they've got your guy here, Mike Williams. We were just talking about it with the Jets here. Mike Williams here as their number 8th spot here on the trade block, and they're talking about the Kansas City Chiefs with their situation, Rashee Rice, and then that they were looking for Devontae Adams too, and things like that, and to add a wide receiver to this injured wide receiving core, plus not having Rice because of issues too, and then also the Steelers. They bring up the Steelers too as a potential interest here. Kansas City Chiefs, I think that's interesting here too because. With now Marquez Valdez-Scantling getting cut, do you think they just go back to the well again and they're like, hey, like they did with Juju? You think they're just going to be like, hey, he knows the system already. He's plug and play. He's done well here. Right. We'll just do that.
Yeah, it's a possibility that MVS does return to Kansas City because it'll be a low-cost move. It's really not going to hurt them. He's been there before, and like you said, there's familiarity with
success
with Mahomes. But from what we're hearing out of Kansas City is and I want to clear something up is the fact that anybody suggests Devontae going to the Chiefs is absolutely asinine. That makes no sense at all. You really need to open your eyes here and listen with your ears because. There is no way a division rival would trade a high-end player like Devontae to that rival just to face him 2 times a year. Right. It doesn't make any sense.
You are fake news.
To me, and it wasn't just one kind of media outlet. It was everybody was suggesting he could go to the Chiefs. No, he can't. Why would you think the Raiders would trade him there?
No.
And face him. No. So that was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, going back to Mike Williams and how the Steelers makes a lot of sense to me though. The Steelers it'll be a low cost move for the Steelers. They get another starting caliber player and a guy that's still young. Yes, he's been bitten by the injury bug a little too often early in his career, but he still shows flashes from time to time of being a good receiver. And he's a big body receiver, 6'4", 215 or so. The guy is a red zone dream, basically. He can go up there and get that ball and score touchdowns that way. Has speed for his size. So, and I just feel like that relationship Steelers and Mike Williams kind of makes too much sense.
Right.
Like a physical receiver like him being paired up with George Pickens, that to me is going to that would be something exciting to see. And the fact that Russell Wilson is now going to be the starter who actually throws the football to receivers.
Yep.
I look for this offense to kind of take off, and especially if they could add a guy like Mike Williams.
Right. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was thinking the same exact thing. You got Russell Wilson starting this week. I think, yes, it would work out nice. You get another wide receiver there to help get the pass game going. And they can also rely on the run game that they've been doing throughout the season so far. So I think it would work out nicely there, and he would be able to play right away because the thing is, too, with the Jets depth chart, the way they were, he was down farther on the depth chart, was barely getting any play time. So I think that's part of even the lackluster play on top of it as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that Aaron Rodgers doesn't trust him so much. So
what was what was there a third team that they suggested, or just the couple?
The Chiefs and the Steelers. It looks like they've got only 2 teams they're listing for just about for everybody.
Somebody brought up, was it today or yesterday? Someone said that Mike Williams could have probably been part of the trade for Devontae. Where because Tom Telesco, who's the GM, drafted Mike Williams from when he was a Charger, and the relationships there, he re-signed him as a Charger. Like, they were making those relationship ties.
Yeah.
But my thing is, like, if when they were having these negotiations, like, and knowing that if they were getting Devontae Adams, wouldn't you think they would have just thrown Mike Williams to the Raiders in part of that trade just to get rid of him if that was the case? But the fact that they didn't shows me that Tom Telesco also wasn't interested in him because he could have brought it up on the phone
could have,
and said, hey, if you throw in Mike Williams, it's a done deal. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so I think that ship sailed because now, like, after you've agreed to a trade for Devontae, I don't see the Raiders calling them up or the Jets saying, hey, you interested? You know what I mean? And try to get another trade done.
Exactly.
Separately.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. No, I hear you. And that's what I thought originally, too, with the trade it was going to be, because you're going to ask for something decent. I thought a 2, automatically down a conditional 3 to make it a 2. Yeah. And a wide receiver was equal compensation, you know what I mean, for that type of a player. And I thought it was going to be Mike Williams. So, I mean, it made too much sense. But
and then what about
that's why we talked about it last night, to where we thought they kind of jumped the gun on this whole thing again. I think they could have waited out right to the last minute with the trade deadline looming. Everybody, you see the suitors that were there. There was a lot of people get desperate. So
and they should have played hardball. That's what they should have done, but they didn't. Actually, what they should have done is before the draft this past offseason, they should have traded him then. That was the most value they were going to get. The Jets were willing to give up 2 second-round picks back then. You should have done it then and not wait till now. So price, dropped a little bit, obviously, and here's where we are. But I was curious to know that why wasn't Hassan Reddick even? I'll say it this way. I'll be curious to find out if and when, whether it be a month, 2 months, at the end of the season, to find out if we go back and look and you start to hear new information about this whole Devontae Adams trade go down, did the Raiders, in fact, also talk about Hassan Reddick of partially being in this trade, involved in it? I'll be curious to know because you knew the Jets were going to trade him. Yeah. They've already given him permission to seek a trade.
Yeah, I mean, he's there.
Why
he's
not
playing, so.
Kind of like, okay, does this make it closer if we give you a Reddick and a third rounder and not have to worry about giving you a second? You know what I mean? Like something like that. And then even if the Raiders wanted to like kind of ironclad sweeten the deal, they could have been like, all right, we'll give you Adams in a 6th. And then you give us Reddick in a 3rd. Like that would have kind of made up for it or whatever, make it a little bit more even. So that's just something. I love learning about some of these negotiations that happen. And then afterwards, we get the real juicy details. Like, hey, but did you know that James Cook was part of this deal? You know what I mean? Right. Initially, and then it fell through.
Yeah, and I think that's why that the with the Hard Knocks opening up to GMs and things like that now in other teams, mid-season and things like that, off-season, is intriguing to everybody.
Like
they like to see
like
that
with the Giants with Saquon Barkley, that whole negotiating period and Joel Shane being on the phone, saying, hey, we really want to sign you, blah, blah, blah. But and seeing how that step-by-step process and how the conversations that were had and what was said, and it's pretty cool and pretty revealing. It's definitely awesome to find out all that information.
Hell yeah. All right, so getting to the top 10 big board here for the Bleacher Report. They've got at number 7, Jonathan Jones, the cornerback from the New England Patriots now, too.
Interesting.
Yes. And they're talking potential suitors, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Washington Commanders.
Really?
Yes.
I don't know about this one at
Yeah,
all. Like I don't think they're going to trade him at all. Jack Jones, like he's decent, but I think he's a player that fits best with New England and what they're trying to do there. I don't know if it really makes sense for him to go to Washington or if it makes sense for him to go to the Chargers. Chargers, I understand Asante Samuel is a little bit banged up. Maybe that's why there's concern there, and maybe they might make a move. But here's the thing: is like just because we think a move might happen because of roster and injuries and things of that nature, you also got to think about it this way. That means you got to give up compensation. And does a team really want to give up compensation? Are they really in the running to make a Super Bowl move? And this one trade is going to put them over the top in their minds? Right. That's really what it comes down to. The Chargers, to me, honestly, is a average team in the league that they're going to win some, they're going to lose some this year anyway. And by getting a corner like Jack Jones, does that automatically transform that defense to be a top 5 defense, and they're going to make them win double-digit wins instead? I don't think so. And I'm not sure how interested the Patriots would be on giving him away. Like,
yeah, and like they're talking about, again, it's a rebuild. He's a veteran there in a good position. His I think opposing passer rating is 99, in his coverage, so it's decent. But what are you going to get for me right now? Like you said, I don't think anybody's looking at, hey, this guy right here is going to be the key to us winning the Super Bowl, like you said, or make our push. And for New England, what are they going to do? They're just going to really be terrible. I think they're trying to see what they have as a team right now, moving forward. So I don't think they're going to unload guys right now too and shed what they have. They still have, I think, a lot of young guys out there right now, so they're still trying to figure out what's going on with this rebuild. And and I don't think Mayo is going to make a move like that. I think he wants to evaluate the talent that he has here moving forward and then go from there. I don't think they're going to be big on trade partners with anybody.
And here's the thing about Jonathan Jones is this is his last year under contract. He's 31 years old. Are you really want to give up a 7th rounder? Because that's what it would be. It wouldn't be anything crazy.
Right.
It'd be a low round pick for a 31-year-old corner who is making $8 million base salary right now. Like, do you really want to take on the rest of this contract for this year and then have to worry about possibly re-signing him, or you're just going to be comfortable with having him for the second half of the season and then that's it? He's gone. Like, that to me is like, it's a little harder pill to swallow for that suggestion.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't know about that. I think that one's a bust too on this one. So far we've only agreed with the Mike Williams thing so far. That's the thing with these lists. All right, here we go. Number 6 on Bleacher Report's big board trading block. Walker Little, the offensive tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And their potential suitors here, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles, which both teams do need help in keeping their quarterback up, right, and getting holding off the pressure, because again, Joe Burrow last week too with the Giants, he was getting pressured a lot and having to get out of the pocket or make some quick throws here, and that's been his whole career though, and you wonder why he's banged up too and having the injuries that he has. The offensive line, no matter how much they try and fix it, things like that, still issues and still getting pressures and things like that. So I could potentially see something like that. But are the Jags going to do that? I mean, the guy's 25 years old.
25 years old, man.
Yeah, I mean, he started only 11 games in 2023 with them.
He's a draft pick of theirs. Like they've invested in him to give him up, and the fact that he doesn't have enough of a track record as a starter.
Right.
Like, he has some experience, but not enough to like. It's not like he's been a starter for them since they drafted him, and now you're like, oh well, he's a starting caliber, player. Let's go get this guy. And would the Jaguars be willing to give him up because he literally just got there a couple seasons ago? So it doesn't make sense to me why you would move on from a potential starter down the road, a future starter potentially, and just kind of move on from that when they've had struggles with the offensive line before. I'm going to say that I don't buy into this one either. I think it's too much to ask for when if you were to move on from him, you're moving on from your backup basically at left tackle.
Right.
Like Cam Robinson's a starter, Walker Little's the backup. After that, you have a injured Javon Foster who's been out, and you don't have anybody that's going to be able to replace him. So it's like, what happens if, let's just say, for example, Cam Robinson leaves the Jaguars next season? Let's just say we'll make it up. He's a free agent, And now you're like, oh, well, we got a hole at left tackle. We do have Walker Little. Like, we give him a shot at starting. He's been there. But if you don't have him, it's like we're starting from scratch. Now we have to. Now we're we're in a tunnel, and we have to draft. No matter what, we have to draft a left tackle this upcoming draft, or pay whatever amount of money to get a veteran.
Right.
So it's like you put yourself in a hole here if you were to move on from it and things don't work out with Cam or he gets injured, done for the year. Now you got to rely on someone. So,
yeah. And what's that do for your team and where you're attacking the draft? I mean, say you do unload them for some reason, you're not going to get a whole lot even at this point. And now in that first round, who are you taking for the Jags right now? They could take a lot of key positions like wide receiver, things like that, something else that can help generate points. But if you lose that guy in the tackle position, now they might have to use their first round pick for a tackle if you want to get a solid one. You know what I mean? And as far as the other two teams, they're looking at it again because of injuries to Trent Brown, Mailata here for the Eagles. But I don't think they're looking and say, hey, this guy right here, that's a backup. He's going to go and plug and play for these guys, for these two veterans right now.
Well, here's the thing. He's a left tackle. He's not a right tackle.
Right.
So for them to suggest that the Bengals would bring him in to now all of a sudden change his position to the right side, that's not good. That's not, and he wouldn't be used to that. He would struggle right away because it's a completely different way, a completely different side to play on offensive line. If you've played left side your whole career, no experience at right, now all of a sudden the coaches say, hey, in the NFL level, we need you to switch to right. It's like writing with your left hand your whole life, and then all of a sudden saying, hey, guess what? We need you to write with your right now. It's so difficult, so awkward, so hard. It just doesn't make any sense for the Bengals. Now, about Jordan Mailata, he is coming back. He's not done for the year. I know a lot of people were concerned that he might be, but new reports have stated that he is not done for the season. He's going to miss some time. He's going to miss a few weeks, but then he'll be back into the lineup. So there's that. And with that kind of news, it doesn't force the Eagles to have to go and trade for a tackle now and try to stay into the playoff race. So it is his last year, though. Walker Little, this is his last year on his rookie deal. And after this year, you could still re-sign him, as a backup to compete at the left tackle spot for the Jaguars or even start if need be. But it would be at a little bit more of an increase, but nothing crazy because he hasn't been a starter. You know what I mean? Hasn't had that full experience all season long. So I think that this is another kind of reach for this article for Bleacher Report. I don't think this is even going to happen no matter what team it is.
All right, here now we're cracking the top 5 here, and
what do we got now?
This is, I think, a little more interesting here.
Okay.
Greg Newsome the second here, cornerback for the Cleveland Browns.
This is interesting
again because the Browns, you see the way they are playing right now, not very good. Deshaun Watson, they're tied to him and stuff like that too. So he's not fully going guaranteed. Yeah, you've got that cap hit. So now this guy right now, he's 24 years old, set to play on his 5th-year option in 2025. So something's got to get done here. And you could remove his $13.4 million salary off the books right there if you trade him now before doing all that. So that's, I think, something that could be potentially something that let me see who the suitors they potentially have. I think they've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Chargers.
The Chargers again with them obtaining
a
corner.
Bucs sounds intriguing.
This makes sense. The Bucs, to me, honestly, I don't know if they would do it because they like their young corners that they have. To me, that doesn't make sense. Like I would have to think like an injury happened to a starter for a playoff caliber team, then you go and get this guy. And that would make sense to me. Or if you're a team that's in need of corner, because there's still teams out there that don't have true answers at the cornerback position that could go after this guy. You know, like even like, let's just say, for example, like if the Giants wanted to upgrade at corner, like this would be a good target for them. Yeah. A guy who doesn't cost a lot of money right now. He is only 24 years old currently. If they were to trade him now, as far as salary goes, it's not going to kill them because the cap savings are it's just above $2 million. And then the dead money is just above $1 million. So it's like $1.5 million, close to that. So it's not going to kill you if you trade him now. And then he still has 1 year left remaining on his deal. So let's just say if it doesn't work out next year and it's like you could just walk away, let it walk away, let it go away. So it would be, I think this is a very good player to bring in if you, and this is for any team, not just the teams that they suggested, but for any team that needs help at corner, you bring this guy in. You most likely don't have to give up large compensation, even though he's a younger player. I think that you could get away with a mid-round pick for this guy, and then who knows, maybe you reap the benefits later on, and he's your starter the whole time, and balls out for you. So I think this is a trade likely to happen if the right teams are interested and are serious enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. I was looking at this, and there's a few different teams, not even just these two that they list. I think that would fit the criteria of looking to make that playoff push and actually, Super Bowl that could use a guy like this to help where they've kind of been soft in the corner position.
Who they got?
But yeah, so they got.
Did they mention more teams? Or
no, that was they just put two teams always, and I think they have their own link that they do. I was even looking at maybe not the Bills because they just did a trade here, but there's a few different teams out there. I know they had mentioned the Commanders and a few different things. Maybe the Commanders decide to pull the trigger or something like that. You never know. And a lot of times, the teams that are in the AFC, they're going to trade with somebody in the NFC too, not exactly give it to a contender, things like that.
As long as they're not in the division.
As long as they're not,
you know what I mean? That's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I was just looking at the Chargers. I mean, they just signed Christian Fulton this offseason, and Christian Fulton's been one of the best corners in the league. From a statistical standpoint. The guy's been balling out ever since he arrived in L.A. So you have one side locked down. Now the other side, a younger player, but who knows? Maybe it's considered an upgrade if you bring in Newsome. So it could make sense if they were to pull the trigger on this. I mean, that does make sense. There's plenty of other teams too. Like you could even make the argument that Denver Broncos could add him. On the opposite side of Surtain, you could make the argument of the Kansas City Chiefs. You could make the argument for almost every team, honestly. Like just to either bolster your depth or strengthen your cornerback group altogether. Look at the Dolphins. Jesus. Like, I'm sorry, but like I don't care what anybody says. Ramsey's done. Jalen Ramsey, he's been, touted as the best corner in football and all that, but no, it's over. It's done. He's not considered the best, not in my eyes anyway.
No.
And I think you could benefit from a guy like Greg Newsome, bring him into Miami, bring him into Buffalo even. Buffalo could use another corner. Almost everybody could use an extra corner. Ain't going to kill you.
Yep.
And who knows? He might play so well that you're like, you view him now as a starter, not just a backup. Not just a nickel corner. Or he can play. He can do both too. Yep. He isn't just an outside corner. He can also play nickel. So he's very versatile, which makes you more valuable too. So I encourage any team that needs help or is looking for help to go hit up Cleveland right now because they are selling.
Yeah. It's a garage sale right now.
That's right. We got another know-it-all in the house. Christian Dickinson is in the house. What's going on, Christian? He says, what it do, fellas?
Hey, what's up? Hey, what's going on? We're just talking trade block stuff. A couple of lists here from Bleacher Report. So far, it's not the best. We found two guys,
two players that are worthy.
That seemed like it would be worthy of it. And that was Mike Williams and now Greg Newsome the second here. Or Mike Williams, yep, and Greg Newsome. Now they've got here at number 4. We've cracked the top 5. Hassan Reddick is right here now, finally. And we talked about this already a little bit, and where he potentially could have been part of that trade with the Raiders. But now he's out there. He's obviously not playing for the Jets here, so he wants out. You got Drew Rosenhaus and company here trying to push it. So we'll see where he ends up landing. I mean, a lot of people could use edge rusher. We talked about it last night. Does Detroit try and get him or something like that? Does you know, you talked about Atlanta even looking to potentially add another help on the other side with Matthew Judon. So do they do something like this or whatnot? It could be anybody right now. So anybody that could potentially need somebody like this of his caliber. But who knows how he's going to play though? I mean, this guy's been sitting out for a very long time. Still, when he was playing, he was productive, but you got to knock that rust off a little bit, you know what I mean? And if you got to be that guy that's going to kind of plug into a team that's trying to make a playoff push, we can't wait around for you to, warm up, So it's going to be tough. We've got, what does Christian say? He says, ready to move on from Andrew Thomas. Bum hasn't finished a season in years. That's the thing now, too. Yeah, and Andrew Thomas, again, done for the season.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, and
their
it sucks
best offensive
he's,
lineman.
He's good. He has been good. But lately, he has been having the injury bug, and that's what I think is the problem with this team too. Is not everybody can be on the same page when not everybody can be on the same field at the same time either, too, because there's so many injuries. I'm surprised. You're knock on wood so far. I think I just jinxed myself. Wan'Dale Robinson, been out there being able to play week to week. So it's tough when Daniel Jones doesn't have the same receiving core out there, doesn't have the same offensive lineman out there because of injuries nonstop, things like that. And again, there it is, Andrew Thomas. Again, the injury bug played again. So now his left side will not be protected. And here we go. We'll get ready to see some bad Daniel Jones on this one, too. Unless
so his left side and right side won't be protected. Got it.
Yes. Yes, right.
I mean, that's the
right side has been a little better now that you don't have Evan Neal there, So
the unfortunate part about this is it hasn't been as bad as it might sound with him having injuries. I mean, in 2020, he started 15 games, played in 16. That was his rookie year. The following year in 21, started and played in 13 games. So he missed a couple. 22, the whole season, made the whole season count. In 23, played and started in 10.
10, yeah.
And then missed a significant amount of time. In 23. And then this year, unfortunately, he didn't even get to the halfway mark.
Right.
So the last couple of years, I mean, you may make the argument that he's heavily injured, sure, but linemen get banged up.
Yeah.
Like linemen are going to miss some time from here and there, but not to this extent. When 23, that can't happen. You can't just play in 10 games. And then now it's like you didn't even reach the halfway point. That's got to be a growing concern for the Giants. And I don't necessarily think that they're going to move on from Thomas. I think that they view him as a real part of the future of this team. But somehow something's got to change, whether it's he needs some help. Because that obviously would go another, that would be another, like, it would go farther for him.
Right.
And in terms of him not having to stress on not just blocking the guy that he's responsible for, but also trying to help out the guard next to him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that kind of does play in the part of this every single week for offensive linemen. If you got a really good offensive lineman, sometimes he has to try to make up for your lack of potential next to him. And you see that a lot with some of these offensive lines that are struggling. So What else Christian say? He said, you said 3 seasons now. So
yeah,
so this
2
season and
seasons.
last
I would
year
say
is really
this was
what
the
it
most
is.
recent ones,
I
yeah,
mean-
because that's when you start to notice something like, oh man, last year he was, and now again this year, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's what
see.
I kind of look at, you know.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a bad taste in your
Right,
mouth as a
right,
fan
right.
to know that last year he left early, and then this year he didn't even get close to the
Yes,
end.
yeah.
I mean, that obviously is frustrating, but I don't think it's a reason to just give up on the guy when
Right.
he is your best lineman that you have.
Yeah, I
Like-
mean, he went toe to toe with Hendrickson last week too, and was doing good, was holding his own until he got 2 sacks, but still was doing all right 1-on-1, wasn't getting help at all, and that's what their game plan was, and I think he's done good, but just recently,
They
he said
talking-
definitely don't
they're
throw
talking-
Evan Neal in there. Yes,
They're
definitely
talking
don't.
about throwing in Azuzu in at left tackle instead of moving Illuminator. Illuminor,
yeah.
over from right tackle. Well, here's the thing: Illuminor's best position is the right
He's right
side.
yeah.
It's right tackle.
Yeah.
He's not as good at left tackle. He's still adequate, but not as good. So I think where he is right now is his home. That's where he needs to stay. And yeah, of course we agree. Evan Neal, do not put him out there. Javon Manners, another New Orleans tuning in, said, "Go Bills."
Bills Mafia in the house. How about that?
That's right.
Yeah, so
We're talking about
we're talking about trade stuff, the
potential trade
potentials.
players.
Yep. We talked about Hassan Reddick already a little bit. I don't know if you want to touch more about it. And I looked at the 2 suitors that they had, Cincinnati Bengals and the Detroit Lions, like I had said. So that's interesting.
Bengals doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
Not at all. Like
No,
Detroit
I mean,
does.
Yeah, they're just trying to say
Detroit-
as a compliment to Trey Hendrickson, but they've got Hubbard there.
Detroit
too, so.
Lions makes a lot of sense because they just lost Hutchinson,
Yeah,
and
yes.
technically he's done for the year. But if somehow, some way, Detroit finds themselves in the Super Bowl, then he's likely to come back. But that's still a challenge for them, like for any team. You can't plan on that. So, but if you want to keep the ball rolling, maybe you do add a guy like Hassan Reddick. Maybe Detroit is the favorite now to add him. But also, I would throw this other team into the mix, the Atlanta Falcons. Even though they traded for Matt Judon, they don't have anybody on the opposite side. Now, if you were able to add Hassan Reddick and Judon as a tag team, now you're looking at some fierce pass rushing ability for the Falcons and that defense that is playing much better. Javon Manners says also, he goes, "We literally talked last weekend about it. Buffalo didn't want to take Adams, that they should talk to Cleveland about Cooper." Exactly. So Javon Manners at the Flag League, that's how I know him.
Yeah.
We did, because he's a Bills fan. We started to talk about Devontae Adams and what the scenario is, what about Cooper and all that. And sure enough, Amari Cooper is a Bill.
There you go.
And thank God that they got a top end wide receiver, because they just they needed a playmaker. They need another playmaker to kind of go full circle with this offense. Now they have that. They got their guy in Cooper, who I think fits very well with this team. And also, like, you pair him up with Khalil Shakir, you pair him up with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, and then Keon Coleman no longer has immense pressure to, you have to be the guy.
Yeah.
Like now that pressure is alleviated a little bit. Yeah, they're still expecting him to do good things, but now it's like, Cooper's here. He's the guy now. He's the one that we're going to be going to all the time. Excuse me.
Yeah.
But then we're also going to feed the ball to Shakir. We're going to continue to feed the ball to Keon Coleman. And also what this does too is now there's no more concentration on the new rookie. Like, they're not going to like just kind of like take him out of the game plan. It's only Shakir going to get the ball, short yardage, intermediate yardage. Now it's, we have to worry about Cooper. Forget about Keon. Let Keon do whatever. And, and that might free him up to get a little bit more production that way.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. It definitely helps out there. And it's a true number one that you didn't have before. And now I feel like,
Bill's just moved up in my book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they don't. Josh Allen doesn't have to try and do everything on his own. He's got somebody reliable there. So,
where are we at now?
All right, now number 3. We're at number 3 here for the list, and they've got Budda Baker, the safety from the Arizona Cardinals. potentially on the trading block. He's 28 years old, and he's still a capable starter. I think he's a 6-time Pro Bowler, I think. Yep. And the Lions, they said they've already placed safety Ifatu Melifananu an injury reserve, and they're thinking that potentially that the Lions will potentially look at, Buda Baker. We were just talking about them adding some players. I wasn't really thinking safety position.
No.
I was thinking more of that pass rusher deal. And they say also the Philadelphia Eagles with the way that defense has been playing as of late, though, too. But I don't know. Buda Baker, it's like he's wanted out a bunch of different times and things that never really left.
2 years ago is where he made his major push, wanted to be traded out of Arizona. And it seemed like Arizona was going to accommodate that request, but he had to get healthy. Like there was that period of time he was missing a lot of time, couldn't really do anything until he got healthy. Then by the time he got healthy, it seemed like they convinced him, hey, just give us a year to try to add more talent. And then so he would kind of went along with it. Then last year there was more rumors saying, well, by the time the trade deadline arrives, maybe Buda Baker might be on his way to a new team. But it didn't happen. Instead, Buda Baker rallied around his teammates and basically gave a big, long speech about how we need to step up together, blah, 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 talking about this unity movement for the Cardinals, and we need to have each other's backs. So it seemed like he changed his mind entirely and is staying with Arizona. Now, to this point, I haven't heard anything saying that Buda Baker is interested in leaving Arizona, or if the Arizona Cardinals themselves are interested in moving on from Buda Baker, who happens to be their best defensive player. Don't think that would be a smart choice. So I think that this opinion for Bleacher Report, the player that they brought up, would have been true a year ago, 2 years ago. But now that you see this team being not just competitive in their current state, but also they're still building this team back up again with the new regime that they have in place and new coaching staff. So maybe that's giving Buda Baker more confidence in the organization going forward, and doesn't seem like he's going to want to move, or the Cardinals want to move from him.
Right. And either way, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this season.
Yeah, he's at the end of his year or contract, I should say.
Yeah. So, again, it's like, what are people going to do? Work out a deal for him either, too. So, I mean, I feel like he's just going to hit free agency and then find a different team.
And here's the thing, like, I'm looking at the Lions roster right now. They got, Kirby Joseph, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. Kirby Joseph is a adequate safety. I don't really think you're going to uproot him right now. I mean, obviously, if you bring in Buda Baker, obviously you will, but there's no urgency. I don't feel like it's not a gaping hole. Like, oh my God, we're not going to win games because this dude is costing us, some games throughout the season. It's not like that. So, and Brian Branch is now back at his original position where he should be instead of nickel corner, now at free safety. And we've already seen the success that he's had thus far this season. So Detroit to me doesn't make any sense. Obviously, a team that is in dire need of a safety, and it's not Detroit. It's not the Eagles. I still don't think that this would ever occur because of the same reasons we already just listed. So I think this is dead in the water. I don't think this is a possibility anymore for Buda Baker to be moved on.
Javon's got a few different comments. He says Trubisky to the Raiders. He's talking about that potentially for you guys to get a quarterback.
I don't think so.
That situation.
I don't think so. It's not going to happen this year. The Raiders will not. The only way that I could see the Raiders now, I mean, you're almost at midway point in the season. Does it really make sense to go and trade for a quarterback now? No. Because let's just say if Flacco became available, that would be a quarterback I could see the Raiders pursuing because he's proven last year, he's proven this year that he's still a competitive quarterback, still a guy who can get things done, who can help you win games, and he's a proven commodity where you would go out and give the Colts a draft pick to get him and maybe turn your season around and get back into the playoff race. I don't think bring Trubisky into the Raiders and saying, now we're going to compete for the division or compete for a wild card or something of that nature. Turn this thing right around because Trubisky comes in.
Right.
And also the other challenge for any trade, for any player at all, but more importantly, quarterback, is you bring him in midseason now, he still has to learn the offense. It's going to take 2-3 weeks until you get kind of comfortable in running any given offense. So regardless of how much of veteran status you have,
Yep.
It's going to take a few weeks. And then by the time now the team starts to cook, but there's only like 6 games left. Like, you're not going to be able to make it up in time. So
yeah,
I think
I think it's a lateral move right now. I mean,
yeah, I don't. I think it's a downgrade.
Well,
I mean, honestly,
to an
because
extent.
I think you
I'm
have
looking at it more of along the lines like when they got Gardner Minshew. You know what I mean? As a lateral move. It's the same thing with Trubisky. Trubisky's been a starter before. Hasn't gotten anywhere above where he was even with Chicago. Just now a career backup. What's you're to gain? You're better off staying with Aiden O'Connell right now, seeing what you truly have with him, with still not a full season, but the majority of the season kind of moving forward here, and develop him, see what happens. Then in the offseason, the draft, get him some weapons, get some free agents in there too, guys with a positive attitude.
Still draft a quarterback,
get
though.
Things going.
Still
right,
draft another quarterback,
too,
have that competition.
That's a different situation.
But my thing here with Trubisky is the fact that it's a downgrade, 100%. Yeah. Like, you're not bringing him in, like you mentioned, he's had experience elsewhere and couldn't get the job done.
Right.
Now you bring him into the Raiders, and I still would put Aiden O'Connell above him. I think Aiden O'Connell has a lot of attributes that you really like in a starting caliber quarterback.
Right.
Quick release, anticipates, has a strong arm, and is super smart. He might not be the most mobile guy, but he gets the job done. Gets the ball out of his hands. So I agree with you. I think they need to just keep working with Aiden O'Connell and build around him. And when it comes time to draft, you're going to find your guy. Again, we have to put that in air quotes. Your guy at quarterback, and hope he pans out and have a quarterback competition next season, and may the best man win, and see what you can do after that. So Javon also said the Cards are only a couple pieces away from being a contender. Kyler is a dog. Kyler is a gamer. He's not a dog. Like, we know that he loves to play COD and Call of Duty and all that, and actually has just signed on to a team. What? Like, he signed on to like one of the gaming teams right there for Call of Duty. So congratulations, Kyler, on joining a video game industry. But Kyler Murray, honestly, I had my doubts about him this year. Like, we've seen in years past how he struggles, how sometimes he makes mistakes, turns the ball over. This year, he's not doing that as often. He's actually playing very good football, and he's turning the narrative around on him. You know, he's no longer seen as that turnover guy, the guy who's kind of just running around. He still obviously will utilize his legs, but still is playing at a high level for the Cardinals. And Javon, I will say that, and I think we both view it the same way. We are actually impressed with the Cardinals team as a whole. We thought the defense was going to struggle. In fact, they're playing well above what we anticipated. And then offensively, they are doing much better than we thought.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think, like he's saying, get some extra pieces there and lock it up a little bit more with even the defense holding down points a little bit, and then you're good. Because again, some of these games have been shootouts that the offense has been able to kind of compete in and take advantage of. So I think that's a good point right there that he brings up. So
yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like the only kind of like really negative week that they've had is when they played Green Bay. They just got dominated. And we'll see how they respond after that loss. But oh my God, Jim, we got another old school know-it-all. Paul Gifford is tuning in. What's going on, Paul? He said, long time no see. Absolutely, bro. Yeah. Welcome back to the show, my guy.
Hashtag know-it-alls.
Where have you been? It's like,
I've been calling you.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, we've still been here. So yeah, right now we're talking trading block. We're looking at Bleacher Report's list, and most of it's made up and oblivious. It basically, they wanted to find a way to sprinkle in the two that were the main ones that we're really talking about. Things are out there,
but then add to it,
and then just throw some garbage in there. Like, we need to make this a top 10 list. We can't just do 2.
That's right.
Let's throw these other guys in there. And it doesn't really make sense, but whatever.
The only other thing I could say about Budda Baker real quick
yeah.
is that it is his last year on his contract.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, so they try to make sense with that. Like,
but my thing is, just because it's his last year, and there was rumors before, doesn't mean that now he wants to still leave.
Right.
He's obviously changed his mind.
Right.
But what'll be interesting is when free agency is about to hit. Will the Cardinals give him another long-term agreement to lock him in there and keep him? Or do they are they going to be forced to use a franchise tag if negotiations don't go well? That'll be the interesting part of this situation.
All right. And the next here, number 2, we're down to the bottom of the list. They've got DeAndre Hopkins for the Tennessee Titans.
I've heard of this. I've heard of Hopkins possibly being moved on from the Titans because, you look at what they brought in, Calvin Ridley, right? Another guy who's younger than DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who is more of a playmaking guy, just like Hopkins. But don't take away from your receiving core too early. I mean, you just got Calvin Ridley there to team him up with Hopkins. If you're to move on from Hopkins now, I don't think that's a smart move. I think you need to kind of ride it out with Hopkins and Calvin Ridley because your offensive dip in production isn't because of the receivers. It's because your quarterback has been making bad decisions. It's because your quarterback isn't stepping up to the occasion. Now, when we look at DeAndre Hopkins, like right now, his base salary is just over $8 million.
Yep.
And I get it. He is 32 years old. He's over 30, and people might be concerned about his future. Now, if you're a team that trades for Hopkins, you're essentially renting him for the rest of the season because his contract is technically over after this year. Now, they've added voided years onto this contract to kind of stretch that money out.
Yep.
But this is his last year as a Titan, I think. So do I think they would trade him? What do you think the value would be for a Hopkins? Being 32 years old, kind of seen as a Devontae Adams-esque type of level wide receiver, but a guy who's kind of been missing lately. And it's not because of him. It's because they're not getting him the ball enough. So it's like you have that that idea of what he was and now is not the same guy just because of stats aren't up like they used to be.
Right.
So
well, it's another guy that went to a team. He had the chance when he was a free agent to pick what team to go to.
He chose Titans.
He chose the Titans. Maybe expected he was going to be able to be that number 1 guy, get the ball a lot. They were up and coming. They had Mike Vrabel then too.
But also remember that offense was a running offense. They had Derrick Henry in the fold. And my thing, I was perplexed just like you were confused. Why would you choose Tennessee when they run the ball more than they pass? So, and obviously it's changed since then. Now with new regime, they're a little bit more balanced.
I tell you what.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if anything.
What's that?
Because next year's void years. If I'm the Kansas City Chiefs, why not? Kansas City Chiefs, so we'll make a phone call. DeAndre Hopkins, put him with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and all those guys. I think that's an instant fit right there. He'll be able to pick up the playbook pretty easily. He's sure-handed with Patrick Mahomes. He's a veteran. They've shown that they can win with other guys too, and even guys that they didn't want anymore and brought back anyways. Juju Smith-Schuster is doing well there now. So why not? You missed on Devontae Adams, stuff like that. This guy's 32, right? Too as well, right? 32
years old.
Yeah. So why not? The value's got to be low. I'm sure, again, he wants probably out, even though he's not vocally saying it out there. But
Not yet.
But come on.
But the Chiefs make sense.
Yeah.
But the only sticking point is salary. Chiefs only have $4 million under the cap. So they would have to figure out a way, because they're already giving a boatload to Chris Jones. They're giving a boatload to Trent McDuffie. They're giving a boatload of money to everybody on that team. My thing is that with $4 million, you got to work some miracle in the front office to kind of make this work. Because even if you are to restructure his deal, now you're compounding, like, can you afford it after this year because it's going to affect it down the road because you obviously can't afford it now. And if you were able to restructure it to let's just say $3 million to kind of fit it just under the bill here, but now you're going to have to pay him a lot longer down the road. Right. And when you're doing that on top of playing other high prices, you might not be able to re-sign guys like other people down the road to keep them keep them together. So
they might do things to make it worth. Like you said, if they do now, maybe it's the 1-year rental. Say he goes, they get the.
But they still got to make that contract work. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know, which they do, which they've done before though too. But even at least for the short term, and then he walks away.
But they got to make it work now.
Yeah,
that's the hardest hurdle, is because that's not a close gap. That's over half of what their spending account is right now. So I think it makes sense for them to go to the Chiefs. But again, I think that they could go a different route that's cheaper and do it that way. Like Hopkins would obviously be a dream scenario for Chiefs fans and for Mahomes. But he's also a guy who you technically kind of still have this type of receiver already in Juju, who's a big physical guy who doesn't have top end speed, but is athletic. He's lost his top end speed now that he's 32. He's not going to blow by corners and run straight down the football field anymore. So, are you really going to invest that kind of money? And also whatever the compensation might be, 2nd, 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, whatever. That to me is a lot. That's a big type of hurdle to get over for the Kansas City Chiefs for a guy of this caliber. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just stating the facts and how hard it is going to make it work. In that regard.
Javon says the Chiefs could definitely make something happen for Hopkins. So he's on board with the Chiefs. We'll see. Again,
that's the thing. Is will they make it happen? They could try. But there's a lot in detail to kind of iron out before you could even get it to that point.
Yeah. And there's always a lot of perfect scenarios in our brains, and then we see what really happens in reality, and then you're kind of like, huh? So who knows? But with teams, if they really need it, want it, they find a way to make it happen. So. So all right. So do you think of any other contenders? Let's see who they put actually as potential suitors. Kansas City Chiefs. Actually, they put the Chiefs and the Browns. Again, why would they go to the Browns?
They traded Cooper away just to get Hopkins.
Wow. Big brain ideas. Here we go.
And they got.
That's a great idea.
But that's the thing is like a lot of these teams, Commanders. Why not the Commanders?
And are they even trying to tie like Hopkins with Deshaun Watson too? Is that the whole thing too? They're like, hey, wait a minute.
Oh,
these
maybe
two guys
the
know each other
relationship there.
too. Oh man, here we go. It's got to be
No,
it too.
I don't.
That's funny.
I mean, even though the Browns obviously have more than enough cap space to kind of pull it off, and they could pull it off, why Hopkins would just be like, guys,
he's definitely
please,
being wasted there right now.
Please don't trade me there. It's bad. But Washington could make sense. Like Washington is looking for another player. Imagine Terry McLaurin and Hopkins on the same team with Jaden Daniels, the way he's been playing. Like, that would be enticing. That would be exciting. No, it won't be the Cowboys. They got enough. They need a running back. Who else? It would be kind of, I don't see it happening, but Cardinals, if they wanted to bring back Hopkins, put him back with this team along with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mark Wilson. That kind of makes sense because they have the money, and that might actually really bolster that offense to the point where now they can compete with the Packers in terms of scoring and all that.
Yep.
Other than that,
it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You
look at teams; it's a luxury addition now at this point.
Yeah. It seems like a Cowboys move to me too.
Steelers, they're still looking for a receiver.
I don't know.
That could make sense.
Yeah.
And they got the cap space to do it.
Yep.
But I mean, that's the other thing too. Is like you might even have some other teams that no one might even give a chance just because they technically don't need it, but it would be a luxury addition. You know what I mean? Like the Bengals. You think about the Bengals if they were to add DeAndre Hopkins because they know they're going to move on from T. Higgins. He's not staying after this year. He's gone. But if you bring in Hopkins to kind of alleviate that loss when Higgins does leave, and you have Hopkins for a year, maybe 2, before he retires.
Yeah,
That's
he is
something to
probably
think
that.
about.
You know, he's kind of like what the late Julio Jones kind of
Right,
was. You know,
right.
now a
Yes.
solid number 2
Yep.
later on veteran. If you needed him, he's there.
Yep.
All right, so finally here at number 1,
Ooh,
they've
number
got
1.
Azeez Ojulari, the edge rusher
Really?
from the New York Giants.
Wait, what?
Yep. What? Yeah, they've got him as their number 1 potential trade block.
What
guy.
would make them think that?
The fact that he's a rotational player behind Brian Burns, but I
Okay.
mean, with Thibodeau being
because-
injured right now too, he's out there and he was playing and he did
Yeah.
well for the Giants last week. Right now he's got 3 sacks on the season.
Gotcha.
But I think the Giants even stick with him. Like, what's the deal here? I don't think his contract's up at this point. I haven't looked at any of that yet. I don't know if you could
well,
bring that up quick.
let's see.
But,
Azeez.
But
Ojulari.
what's somebody even going to get for that? I mean, if again, you're talking about if you make a trade right now, you're looking to make an impact. And is he an impact player for somebody right now?
He'd be a
depending on
pass
what
rusher.
It is, I mean, again, maybe if you put him with the Falcons, again, you're not getting the trade is low. And if he's able to get pressure too, along with Matthew Judon, that would be a nice fit, I think. Again, because you're not trading off a lot.
Yeah,
And,
and
you're
in-
getting him, and I think it's good value.
In fact, this is his last year
Is it?
under
Okay.
contract.
So, yeah, that would
his
make sense
rookie
then.
deal will expire after this year. And then that's probably why they're suggesting is because the Giants aren't going to reinvest in him because they acquired Brian Burns. And that's their guy.
Right.
So now he may be going to free agency. You're definitely not going to tag the guy to be a rotational player.
Right.
So he will be a free agent, and why not cash in, get draft compensation for him, and move on? That actually makes a lot of sense. Now, this one makes a lot of sense, being their number 1 option here for a trade.
Yes.
This makes sense for the organization going forward. It makes sense for Azeez to
Ojulari,
go to a
yep.
different team.
Yep.
And he's still young, and he has been seen as a pass rusher. Now, pass rushers have a little bit more value nowadays in the NFL. So maybe you might get a higher pick than anticipated for him. So he was a 2nd-round pick, 50th overall when he was drafted. So I don't know if you'll get a 2nd-rounder for him, but you'll definitely probably get him for a 3rd or a 4th. And maybe even if it's a 4th, maybe it's a 4th and a 5th or 4th and a 6th, something of that nature. But this is a move where every team is looking for pass rushers. You can never have enough. And what did they make? What are the suggestions that?
I was just
They
scrolling
trade him
down
to.
and I looked at the suggestions, and the Atlanta Falcons are right there.
Yeah,
they
it
even
makes
say the
sense.
Falcons have recorded a league low of 5 sacks through 6 games. Yes, they did add Matthew Judon at the end.
Well, he's
the
being
offseason,
double-teamed
but,
every down.
Continue to struggle in pass rushing department still. So and like you said, there are rumors right now that they are going to look potentially for another pass rusher. So
They
that
have
would
to.
make sense, I think, right here. And then the obvious choice they have here too, Detroit Lions.
Yes.
Not having Aiden
Yes.
Hutchinson here
Makes
too,
sense.
as a pass rusher. So why not?
Makes sense. So either one of those teams makes sense.
Yes.
The art that pick makes sense for once.
Yes.
And I think it would be. I mean, logically, either one of those pass rushers, Hassan Reddick, Azeez Ojulari, are both on both of those teams' maps right now. They're both probably having phone call conversations and seeing the availability, how much each team wants for each player, and probably going to make a call pretty soon. Like, I mean, we're going into week 7.
Yep.
You only got one more full week to kind of make a decision or make something happen. So hopefully Detroit and Atlanta can come away with both of these guys that are out there on the trade block.
Yep. What we got? We got Javon. Sorry, we missed you out there, Javon.
He says, "I know this is late, but
What about the Chargers?
what about the Chargers for Hopkins? No, I don't see it at all. Like, this is a team that does not value wide receivers. Jim Harbaugh does not value them at all. He's a run-heavy type of guy. This is the offense that he wants to run. He does not value wide receivers, and they would definitely not trade for a wide receiver. I would even say, even if someone got hurt, I think they would just end up signing another free agent wide receiver onto the team and keep moving. And the fact that heavily injured wide receiver DJ Chark is going to make his debut this week. So they do have
man.
some a little bit more help, but hopefully he could stay healthy for them. But yeah, so I get what you're saying because the Chargers are very weak at wide receiver, but it's not in the cards because if it was, they drafted Ladd McConkey in the draft, and I think that was the only addition that they were going to make other than DJ Chark being signed. So I think they're comfortable with what they have, and that's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the teams that they listed so far are making sense here for Azeez Ojulari here. I think that's good. There's the list. So yeah, we agreed with maybe 3 of them or some that were potential good ones. And some of the other ones, we already knew and or whatnot. So, and some are pipe dreams, So
Some
but that's
are
the thing,
pipe
though, because
dreams.
it's coming. I think within the next week or so too, we're going to see some more coach firings potentially too, and then teams again that have to try and make that push. So they got to make some decisions. And you'll be surprised who is not on your roster again for your favorite team.
Jim, I got a new head coach to add to the hot seat.
Oh, really? You got somebody else?
Yeah. Take a wild guess.
Let me take a wild guess.
And I'll tell you, this coach,
Colts head coach,
very green. He is a new coach, but I am not 100% sure that he has enough confidence to not just last this year, but even into the next. He's bald, if that helps.
He's bald, if that helps. That's not. It's not Raheem Morris or anything like that.
No, it's not. He has hair.
He does.
He actually has hair.
There. So who is it?
Antonio Pierce.
Antonio Pierce. Oh, I should have known that one. Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
And there's been a lot of chatter lately and a lot of complaining, not from the players because we don't get to hear from them until after the season, but there's been a lot of chatter around the league that is basically stating that there's not a whole lot of confidence in his leadership. Now, the very robust AP from a year ago does not look the same this year.
Yeah.
He's not as boisterous. He's not as demanding and headstrong. And there's something missing now. And I almost wonder that the reason for him kind of changing the way he handles himself or day-to-day operations, but Tom Telesco, when he was hired as GM, everything was all happy. And I think that Tom Telesco has stepped on AP's toes since he's been in the building, which AP now doesn't even know how to act. I think that he doesn't have any power at this point of decision-making, of who knows, it might go as far as even lineups.
Yeah.
Like saying Gardner Minshew or AOC or so he's kind of changed because even when I've seen him on the sidelines, he doesn't look fiery anymore. He's not yelling, he's not animated anymore. He's kind of just there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of like the guy in Tampa.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's no swagger like they had before and things like that too.
Right. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in the hat
because I don't know, because it seemed like when he first got into it too, he was kind of like, I'm going to talk to the right people here. We're going to try and get information here. We're going to help me along. Kind of like, hey, we're going to be a group and we're going to work together. We're going to make this work. And now it's kind of seems like
whenever
he doesn't know how to answer questions in the press conference.
Whenever he's asked a question, he's like, well, I'm going to talk to my people. I'll get back to you next week.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to, we're going to have a conversation. And no head coach says that that way anyways. Yeah. They might be like, I'll let you know. That's it. I'm not going to let you know what I'm doing behind closed doors. I'll just let you know. I haven't decided yet. Something like that. So I thought it was very interesting. And who knows? We all know that this was kind of like a trial run anyway, because Mark Davis might have screwed up before when they had Rich Bisaccia after Gruden left. And now I think he regrets that decision of letting Rich Bisaccia go instead of hiring him. And that might have affected his decision in hiring AP because he didn't want to get the players upset and all this other jazz. But now, who knows? Maybe it changes, but it just looks a little unsettling in Vegas because now you're starting to see, which was once a team early in the year, didn't even commit penalties. The first 2 games, I think they didn't have any penalties, and they were doing very good in discipline. Now It seems like penalty galore every single week. So I don't know. It's just something that I observed. It may not happen, but it's one of those things because maybe Mark Davis is also looking at some enticing possible head coaches after this year.
Right.
You think of Robert Saleh being fired. That would be a good signing. You think of maybe you make a push for Mike Vrabel. That would be enticing. So just something to think about for even guys that are new-ish in the coaching seat. Do they get the opportunity? Do they continue? And I know that's something that you always want. You want continuity. You don't want to fire a head coach, start over again 2 more years later, 3 more years later, start over again. You want to keep the same guys there. But, man, so far it doesn't look like there's too much confidence in the coaching staff.
All right. Yeah, so who knows? We're going to follow that next week or so, week and a half. So, yeah, Joe, before we get to our picks, I have to give you guys my missing player, my milk carton player of the week.
Love this
out
one.
there, and it's tough to pick every week, between some of the players. And I hate to go quarterbacks
Well, it's because you
again.
can't find them.
Yeah,
it's because you can't find them. They're all missing.
So here we go. Milking Carton missing player of the week is Dak Prescott. There you go. There he is.
Burn.
Yeah, it's you know how much I really enjoy doing this, and that's right. There he is, looking at his mug here on the milk carton. You can't find him. Where was he? The Detroit Lions had his day all over here on him. And here's the stat line for him. He threw 51.5%. Completion percentage, 178 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 INTs, abysmal. In that 47-9 loss, I think it was. I mean, 47-9.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
And it wasn't even on his fault either, too.
No.
But, yeah, he did it. Again, I think I said it last night here, when you get in the red zone and he's throwing picks, turnovers, not coming up with points when you get in there, not even a field goal, that is issues here. And that's what he did last week. So he's on the milk carton. He's gone. Where have you been, Dak, after we even defended you, last year?
Yeah, we hyped you up, man.
And everything.
And
here you go, laying an egg.
But honestly, it's really not his fault. It's this offense, the fact that they can't run the ball, and Mike McCarthy can't figure out how to make it better. Check out these for stats last week. 17 of 33, 51.5% completion percentage, 178 yards, didn't even get to 200, but also threw no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His quarterback rate was 42.2.
Yeah.
Took 4 sacks. I mean, it just wasn't a good day at the office for Dak Prescott. And I don't know if it's going to get much better with the way this offense is rolling right now.
Yeah, and that's why we had Mike McCarthy potentially here on the chopping block on that hot seat. So we'll see moving forward with them. They're not looking very good. But, Joe, so that's going to roll us right into Week 7 picks here. Here's our record so far. It's been a rough start here, but we are 51-40 right now, a piece. So we are tied, so that's looking good for us here in the competition.
Yeah, but I'm more excited about the fact that we are now well above 500.
500. We've got gap a little bit now, so it was a good week. So.
I got to let you know that we are normally not bad at picking teams like this.
Yeah.
It's been a rough season so far.
Yeah, we're seriously looking at some of these analysts that are on TV. That's embarrassing.
I'm going to say it's been really hard to pick these teams because they've been so unpredictable. Just when you kind of think you figured a team out, they upset another team that they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, definitely. All right, so here we go. Let's get right into it. It's Thursday Night Football, the Sean Payton game, they're calling it. Goes back home to New Orleans.
The funny thing is that Drew Brees is going to be honored in New Orleans on that game tomorrow night.
Sean is going to be there.
And Sean Payton is there too to share it all in.
Nice.
I think it's going to be a very special moment.
I think it's going to be nice. And I don't think we talked about before, are they going to boom and all stuff. So they're going to celebrate. I mean, the dude was their head coach for over
16 years.
So, yeah. See?
16 years of success there in
Right.
New Orleans. So.
Right. So unfortunately for the New Orleans Saints, though, I think they're very banged up in this one. The offense is struggling too. On top of it, defense is even struggling too. And that's Dennis Allen's baby. If you're the head coach and you're the defensive-minded coach, and your defense isn't very good, there's issues here, and potentially why he could be on that hot seat. Denver, again, their defense is really good. They've got one injury or so, I think, on their team right now on the defensive side. But besides that, I think they're looking good. Bo Nix making plays with their legs. I don't think it's going to be, Denver destroying, New Orleans or anything like that.
No, it won't be like that.
I think it's going to be, he's going to make some plays just enough to get the win here. I like the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Bengals are a little bit banged up. They are going to be without their star corner, Patrick Surtain, which is going to be a huge loss there for the Denver, especially in the secondary. But overall, a lot of guys that are questionable, so they're unsure right now. We know that Mike McGlinchey might make an appearance, might make his return this Thursday night, but it's kind of a little bit of a long shot. So that'll be something to monitor as we get into tomorrow night's game. For the Saints, however, if you want to talk about a team that is beat up, this team has a laundry list of players.
Yeah, you would think that the injury list is their roster.
You would actually.
Like, hey, this is the full roster.
You got your quarterback, Derek Carr, who is ruled out. You got your two starting wide receivers, Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, are both likely out. Rashid Shaheed is actually going to be having surgery on his meniscus, which is going to place him on IR. So he's going to miss at least the next 4 games for them. Olave's out still with a concussion. Yeah. He'll be cleared next week. This week a no-go. Taysom Hill is doubtful because of his rib injury, which I feel like that was the one player that they needed to return to help this offense a little bit better.
Yep.
Their guard, Cesar Ruiz, is out. Their backup center is questionable, not even their starting center. And then you got guys like Pete Werner, who at linebacker, who is also deemed out. So very banged up defense, very banged up offense. Things aren't looking good for the Saints because of all these injuries. And I don't want to make excuses, but I feel like if they had Derek Carr, even with the same injuries, that it would still be an uphill climb for them. Knowing how the Broncos play defense, they play a really good defensive game. I love Vance Joseph and his scheme and how he orchestrates the defense to look like it's in man all the time. But then on the snap, there's a couple players that drop back. There's some guys that are blitzing. And something to note is that Vance Joseph's defense is not only one of the best defenses in the league, but his defense blitzes 45% of the time so far this season. So he has the highest rate of blitzing more than anybody in the league. Damn near 50%, which is crazy. So this Broncos defense is going to try to put a lot of pressure on Spencer Rattler. It's only his second game as a rookie with Carr being out and all these injuries mounting up. I'm going to lean towards the Denver Broncos because they are a little bit healthier, and I feel like they might be able to make just a play or two more than the Saints.
Yep, here we go. The New England
kind
Patriots.
of ruining the moment.
Yeah.
Ruining it for Drew Brees, who's going to be honored, and the fact that Sean Payton's returning home. And I can only assume that the Saints fans are going to give him a huge round of applause when he does come out of the tunnel.
Hey, I'm a Giants fan, so I'm used to those moments being ruined. I mean, we just honored Eli Manning
right.
and David Tyree and everything in halftime, and we lost to the Bengals. You know how many times? We're celebrating 100 years as a franchise right now, and we suck. You know what I mean? It's like we've been terrible for over a decade right now. And
Thanks for the reminder.
Yes, we've been around for 100 years. Let's talk about the old days. You know what I mean? So I feel that pain. The New England Patriots and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville sticking it out, staying there in London for another game here. This will
They're
be
not allowed to come back unless they win, I think.
Right, yeah. I'm like, if you guys lose again, you are a London team. Just stay there.
Just stay there.
Just tell your families. It was nice knowing you. All right. But Shad Khan said, he's sticking behind, the team. He thinks they're still got potential, and Doug Peterson.
That's why you're an owner.
Well, he's saying that because they're still in London right now. They still have to make the trip back.
Hey,
he's waiting.
We are only 0-1 in London.
Right.
That's all I got to say this season.
Yes. So, all right. So, New England, I think they look better right now. They're already scoring better with, Drake May here at the quarterback position. I think he's going to grow with this team here, and it's a perfect team to kind of face right now. I know Jacksonville does do well here in London and play here at home and do better, but I just they look a mess right now. The receivers can't catch the ball at all, so that's frustrating for Trevor Lawrence too, because you see him trying. He doesn't have a lot of time to throw it either, so he's getting pressured on top of it too. Just all a flat, hot mess with this team. I'm going with the Patriots on this one.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing is like Drake May, this will be his second start. In his debut, though, actually played fairly well.
I think fairly well,
Like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, he threw for over 240 passing yards. He had a touchdown, his first touchdown in that game, and he did a good job, especially utilizing his legs when needed to, just kind of like how we broke down that game a week ago. But you're looking at a Patriots team that's actually pretty healthy, minus, obviously, Ramondre Stevenson, who is going to most likely be out another week. He did not practice today, but obviously if you're following the Patriots, you're going to have to take a look at that injury report on Friday to get a clear clarification there. But I think even with that being said, I have more confidence in Drake May. I have more confidence in the Patriots to win this game because the Jaguars, I'm sorry, they just haven't given me any kind of confidence other than 1 week when they played the Colts. They actually showed some fight. They actually fought back and won that game. Now, since then, they're at a loss. They don't know what they're doing. And Doug Peterson, he can't wait. He might as well buy a house while he's out there because I got a feeling that they might lose this game. And, in fact, if that happens, you may see the owner, Shad Khan, get so fed up that he might just fire him on the spot and leave him in London. So.
Right, yep. And the stat line for Drake May, 243 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. He got sacked 4 times, and he did, though, fumble the ball here, and that's just part of learning, though, too. Again, you got to watch those strip fumbles and stuff like that, sack fumbles. So
strip fumbles and
yes,
sack fumbles. How
sack
about just
fumbles.
a normal fumble?
Oh, just a fumble.
Yeah, could be that.
So there you go.
Don't hold it like a loaf of bread.
Yes, don't. Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's go with the Seattle Seahawks here and the Atlanta Falcons. Seattle, again, is like they're okay, but just not, again, they're not clicking on cylinders like they have in the past.
How dare they not click on cylinders?
Again, and Geno Smith missing a few different times here, too. Again, that's the thing, too, because this season just seems like he's a little off right now. Yeah, he's definitely inconsistent. You see the frustration, especially with DK Metcalf. We talked about him last couple of weeks too, to see what goes on with that, see if potentially there's a move there because he's got to be frustrated with the way the team now is being there guy for a while, being close, getting the playoffs, but not really going further. And you got Geno Smith. So you move on from Geno Smith after that. Who you got as a quarterback? He's not in the building right now, so so you're thinking about growing with another quarterback. So that can be rough for them going forward here. But they're on a losing skid here, facing an Atlanta team who's on fire right now, and Kirk Cousins, again, coming off his best game. I think they continue it here. At home, they play really well. I'm going with the Falcons.
Yeah, it's hard not to go with the Falcons right now because they are hot. They're one of the hotter teams in the NFC. In Seattle, even though they're coming to visit, it's going to be a rough plane ride home, I feel like. They are a little bit more banged up. As of today, the injury report reads that Byron Murphy, the rookie D-tackle, has practice limited, so most likely he will be ready to go this week. Tariq Woolen, who missed last week, did not practice today. So definitely keep an eye on that. They can't afford for him to miss another week. They are 500, but they could be below 500 very quickly after this week. I think the Atlanta Falcons are playing so well on offense now. You definitely see the chemistry between Kirk Cousins and the other receivers, Drake London especially. And Darnell Mooney is now finally getting his shine as an Atlanta Falcon. Kirk Cousins loves to throw him the football. He makes plays. And we would just like to see, we've been saying this the last couple of weeks, but we'd like to see Kyle Pitts be more involved. Because I think that he's just one of these untapped talents that they just need to kind of plug into this offense a little bit more than what they already do. We already know that they can run the ball with Bijan and Algier. And defensively, so much better. They're so much better. Now, they could be better if they were to pull off a trade for one of those pass rushers like we mentioned before. But we'll have to wait and see maybe by next week if they make a move. But until then, the Atlanta Falcons, I feel like being at home and the way that they're playing, I cannot foresee the Seattle Seahawks coming in here and winning this game. I think Atlanta wins this.
All right, here we go. The Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills. I've tried to trust in the Titans a few different times this year, wishing they could turn it around. We drank the Mayo coffee, even.
We drank the Mayo coffee.
And I think we're done. You know what I mean? So Buffalo, again, they acquire,
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper.
Yep.
So, I mean, that's an addition here, too. He will be on the field, but again, how much involved will he be? We'll see. But still, Buffalo overall, a way better team than what Tennessee is right now. They're in disarray, too, on top of it, too, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars are. And I'm a bit surprised by that a little bit. But Buffalo, again, at home, I think this is an easy win for Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills, like, they made that game against the Jets, I feel like, just closer than what it should have been.
Mm-hmm.
And they did make some mistakes, but the Bills now...
But they did play a tough defense, too, though.
Bills now acquiring Amari Cooper. Like, this is a big uplift for this offense. Now, you have to temper your expectations on the usage of Amari Cooper. He literally just got there today. So, for him to be involved in the game plan, he will be, but it'll be in a limited capacity, I feel like. Like, he's going to get out there, he's going to make some plays, but I don't think he's going to be out there the whole entire game, or at least most of it. For the Titans, though, this team is kind of really fallen flat on their face this season. Making mistakes. Will Levis is making more mistakes than we anticipated. He's not rising to the occasion. He's not executing as their quarterback, and it's really limited this offense in productivity. The defense is getting healthier, but the defense can only do so much. I think going up against the Bills right now, nobody wants to face them, especially next week when Amari Cooper will be a little bit more familiar with the offense and be more of an asset there. But the Bills at home, very tough place to play. The Bills are definitely going to circle the wagons on this one and get a W.
All right, next up, the Cincinnati Bengals against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland now without Amari Cooper. That's going to make a bigger difference even, too.
Yeah.
Than whether, he is going to
our offense sucked before, but now...
Let's just suck worse. Then let's go trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. like Bleacher Report said. Yeah, that's amazing. That's brilliant stuff. Cincinnati, though, how about that? With that offense, the way they've been played the New York Football Giants, and Cordell Flott really holding down Jamar Chase for a while here too. T. Higgins having a day, but still Cincinnati. Normally this is a tighter game here, but this year Cleveland just doesn't look very good at all in all angles. I think the pass rush is going to get past this depleted offensive line. Deshaun Watson's going to have a rough day, and I like the Cincinnati Bengals in this one.
Yeah, I mean, they are getting a little healthier now, especially on the offensive line. They do, in fact, or they are definitely getting Nick Chubb this week. He's practicing in a full capacity this week, or today, I should say. Definitely look for him as he goes into Friday. Does he continue to practice, whatnot, have any setbacks? But that's something that's definitely a big positive for them. Now, it's unfortunate that Amari Cooper's no longer there, too, to kind of help this offense, but they are going to have to rely heavily on guys like Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku. I'm going to forget I have to look him up, actually. I'm going to forget the other receiver that Elijah Moore. Everyone always seems to forget him, that he's on this team. He's no longer on the Jets. He's on Cleveland. But he's another young receiver that now is going to get ample opportunity now that Cooper's been traded. They got to rely on these guys to do something. This offense has to figure out a way, get more creative. And if you watched when we talked about yesterday on the other show on Blindside Blitz, we talked about a lot of the head coaches that are on the hot seat right now and what to expect going forward. And Kevin Stefanski was one of those guys. Regardless of him signing a new extension this year, we still think he's in jeopardy of losing the job if it continues to get worse like it has been. But again, I understand they're getting Nick Chubb back. It's exciting for Cleveland fans, but the only thing that actually ruined the excitement is the fact that they traded Cooper away. So I don't know how this game is going to unfold, honestly. I could be it could be one of two things. Either Nick Chubb's return ignites a spark under everybody's asses in Cleveland, so much so that they're able to upset this team in the Bengals, or it's going to still be really ugly, despite even if Chubb is successful.
Yeah,
it's just not going to be enough, and that's kind of what I anticipate. Whether Chubb's successful or not, this Bengals team, especially offensively, is just like on wildfire. They are hitting and executing all the plays, and T. Higgins having a good year. Jamar Chase doing Jamar Chase things. A lot to like there with the Bengals. I'm going to go with the Bengals going into Cleveland and getting a win.
All right, here we go. The Houston Texans and the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is a tough one here.
This is a really good one.
So this is going to be a good matchup this week to watch. I could go with either team.
You could, and you wouldn't be wrong if you did.
Yeah, again, because Houston's a powerhouse on the AFC side, Green Bay powerhouse on the NFC side, both making playoff pushes this season. But you got to pick one, right, Joe? So Green Bay,
pick one.
They're home, and they have a little more experience here, so I'm going to go with the Packers here on this one.
Yeah, the Packers, we talked about it off the show, but they just signed Brandon McManus, the kicker, the longtime kicker for the Denver Broncos, a guy who's been out there as a free agent due to some untasteful acts in the air.
Yes,
We'll label it that way.
The Mile
High Club, but not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
But Brandon McManus, now apparently the Packers have done their due diligence on that court case that he just got out of and everything, and they have signed him to be their kicker. Very confident in that. The Packers, on the other hand, they are another team that now that Jordan Love has returned since his injury has looked like the Packers. Like Jordan Love looks like Jordan Love, like we were anticipating from week one. And now he's himself. Like he has confidence in his wide receivers. He has the playbook down. He dusted that rust off after the injury. And that's what has led this team to be 4-2 so far. So, and not to mention the Packers defense has been playing out of their minds, good, turning the ball over. I'm going to forget his name again. The safety, was it Xavier? Let's see here. Is it Xavier? No.
No, I know who you're talking
about.
I know
you're talking about, but you know his name.
Xavier McKinney.
There you go, Xavier McKinney.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
But Xavier McKinney has been balling out and leads the league in interceptions. It's just been insane.
Did for the Giants, you know what I mean?
But at such a rapid fashion already, that's the craziest part, is the fact that he's like getting a pick, at least one, every single week. And you couldn't, whatever amount of money they decided to pay Xavier McKinney is well worth it. Because this defense with him there, with Jared Alexander, they're just really just kind of feeding off of each other. And this Packers defense is just playing out of their minds, like I said. I'm going to go with Green Bay in this one. It's tough to play in Green Bay. It's not that I don't think Houston has a chance to win. I just think that with the way the Packers are playing, it's going to be a tough matchup to go into Green Bay and win. But again, even if Houston pulls it out, wouldn't be surprised.
All right, next, the Miami Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts here.
This is a tough one.
This is a tough one again, too. Because
Dolphins
again, Colts
still without,
are always up and down. Yep. Dolphins without Tua, and they haven't been as good. And Tyler Huntley, for me, hasn't done enough here to kind of proven anything here to me yet either, too. And you just brought him on board too. So what can you really expect here?
Well, in 2 weeks' time, what you did notice is a steady improvement. Now he's a lot more confident than he was 2 weeks ago. He's starting to get more of the plays down, and it's showing. And they're only calling plays that he's comfortable with, and that's why they're starting to gain a little traction on offense. And now you've had another week to prepare, so I feel like he is coming along. Yeah, he's not going to execute the offense like Tua does. You know what I mean? That's the reason why he's the starter. But at least if he can be adequate enough to kind of do the necessary things, become that game manager, that role that they want him to play, I feel like that's what will keep the Dolphins, offense above water here. Defensively, the Dolphins yet again, same news story, same storyline. The defense now starting to get injured again. It makes you wonder, what's going to happen as they go into the season. Are they going to be able to continue to execute? And now they're going to have to face a Colts team that is not led by Joe Flacco. For some reason, the organization is going to end up going back to Anthony Richardson because he's practiced in full now since that oblique injury. So Anthony Richardson comes in. So far Jonathan Taylor has not practiced still, and that's got to be concerning because going into this matchup, there was a lot of expectation that Taylor would be available and ready to play. Obviously, we're going to have to get more clarification on Friday to see if that's going to even happen or if he's listed as out. But this is a Colts team that also has been bitten by the injury bug. Josh Downs didn't practice today. Their center, Ryan Kelly, did not practice today. Michael Pittman didn't practice today because of his back. DeForest Buckner is still working his way back. He is now, they've opened that 21-day practice window for him before they add him to this active roster. So if I had to guess, I would think that DeForest Buckner makes his debut this week. But that all being said, this is a very difficult game to pick because I'm not sold on Anthony Richardson at all. This guy continues to make mistakes, and that concerns me going into this matchup. This is a matchup that I believe the Colts should win, but with Anthony Richardson there and not Joe Flacco at the helm, that's going to give this offense a little bit of uncertainty. You got to be worried about also Richardson turning the ball over too, like he has done. And I'm going to go with the Dolphins in this one. I'm going to go on the side of caution here with the Dolphins, thinking that Tyler Huntley will not make more mistakes than Anthony Richardson, and that'll be the deciding factor.
Right? Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a tough one here for me. I'm just going to stick with the home team and go with the Colts on this one. All right, next we've got the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. This is another good one to watch. Vikings coming off a bye week. We'll see how they respond here. Are they well rested and then just continue to win like they have? Or do they meet the Detroit Lions now, who just put 47 points up against the Dallas Cowboys team? And do they keep it rolling here with that offense, what they've been doing, mixing plays around all over the place with the run, the pass, flea flickers all over, So this is going to be a tale of two just titans right now, monsters here duking it out. It's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be tough. Yeah. Either one could win, but I'm going to side with the Lions, and I say the Lions take down the Minnesota Vikings and end their winning streak.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a tough matchup for both, just like you said, but it is in Minnesota. Very difficult place to play, very loud. That's going to be something that the Detroit Lions have to overcome as well. But again, this is a team that now, after the bye week, are getting healthier. Aaron Jones, we all know that he was out last week with an injury, that hamstring injury. He's probably most likely going to be out this week as well. He did not practice as of today. TJ Hawkinson, though, has. He's practice limited, working his way back. I could see TJ coming back now, adding yet another weapon to this offense. And also, Dalton Reisner makes a return into the offensive lineup at guard. So getting a lot healthier, this Vikings team, which was already sustaining those injuries and still winning games, now that they're getting stronger and healthier, I think it makes them even harder to beat. I think the Lions, as great as they are, the loss of Aiden Hutchinson cannot be overlooked because that means that there's going to be a lack of pass rush now for that Lions team. That's where I view this kind of matchup changes everything there. If Aiden Hutchinson was there, maybe I lean towards the Detroit Lions. But now with that happening, I got to go with Minnesota at home. Sam Darnold and company still continuing their success.
All right, the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants. Giants defense really playing well. Philadelphia's isn't. So I think this game's going to be a lot closer, too. The defense is going to keep this one tight, just like they did with the Bengals and things like that. But without having a reliable kicker and things like that, guys, missing balls, dropping and things like that, inconsistent play on the wide receiving position. That's a factor, I think, in this one. So I'm going to Plus, I have been picking against the Giants the whole season just about here, so I'm just going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles on this one. Saquon comes back. He has no hard feelings, and I think he's going to run amok.
Yeah, and that's most likely what's going to happen. I think he's looking to make a statement in this game. Like, hey, you guys should have paid me. You guys, I would have stayed a Giant. I wanted to stay a Giant, but you didn't want to pay me the money. So I think that's what his what he's trying to do against the Giants is make that
It's his
statement
motivation.
there, motivation, right? But for the Giants, here's the one problem is that they're missing their left tackle, Andrew Thomas. What's funny is that both teams now are missing their left tackle.
Yep.
Jordan Mailata is not going to be available, still dealing with a hamstring, so he's most likely going to be out. So it's kind of even as far as like, you know, your two left tackles being out. But I think that the Eagles have just a better roster. Obviously, we mentioned Barkley being there. They're definitely going to give him the ball to make a point, and I think the Eagles get the win, despite the Giants' surgence on defense and the fact that we've seen a little bit of it, a little bit of production in terms of their offense from here and there. I think the Eagles will be too much.
All right, next up, the Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. Vegas, like you said, there's a lot of questions here that potentially can't be answered by Antonio Pierce at all. And I think just now the traded away Devontae Adams here, you're going to be having some growing pains. Aiden O'Connell just trying to see what the identity of this team is moving forward. So until I kind of know here, I'm going to have a lot of question marks about the Vegas Raiders. So I'm going to go trust with the reliable Matthew Stafford coming off of a bye week. They're going to come back fresh, and I think they're going to pull off a victory here at home.
Well, I think what's happening with the Raiders now is offensively, I don't think it's the quarterback anymore now that they have Aiden O'Connell in there. I think it's Luke Getsy as an offensive coordinator.
Okay.
Now, he's come under heavy fire as a Bear, and everybody kind of blamed him for the lack of production from Fields and all that and his terrible play calling. Well, it's kind of reared its ugly head now in Vegas, and the fact that I watched that Steeler game, and he was calling plays that just didn't make any logical sense. Throwing a screen play 5 yards behind your line of scrimmage when the Steelers were in press, so they tackled you a 4-yard loss. And then you call the same play again and have another 4 or 5 yard loss. Like, it's mistakes like that that's really got Luke Getsy on thin ice right now. And I think that because he's going to be the offensive coordinator yet again this week, I have no faith in this Raiders offense because I think he has a terrible game plan. In game situations has just been one bad decision after the next. And that, to me, is really what's spiraling out of control. You mentioned with Antonio Pierce's leadership on how uncertain that is. Things aren't looking good in Vegas right now. And for the Rams, it's the opposite. They have a good head coach in Sean McVay. They have a good offensive coordinator in Sean McVay. And their defense, their young defense, is now starting to get better and better every single week. The Rams, it's technically a home game, but most likely there's going to be more Raider fans in L.A. than the Rams, but that will not be enough to give a big enough boost to the Raiders. I'm going with the Rams in this one.
All right, next we've got the Carolina Panthers and the Washington Commanders. Commanders looking really good right now. They're really standing out in the NFC East as a viable contender. And Carolina, again, looked better under Andy Dalton right now and moving forward in scoring and just overall better leadership. But they've got a tough hill to climb, especially with the way the Commanders and Jaden Daniels has been playing this season. I'm going with the Washington Commanders here at home. Yeah,
a little bit of excitement for the Carolina Panthers. Their third-string running back, Jonathan Brooks, is making a return. He was practicing in limited participation this week, or at least today, which is going to be interesting to see how they work him into this backfield. Now, we know that Chuba Hubbard has been pretty darn successful for the Carolina Panthers, but Brooks is just a dynamic player coming out of college. So I look to see how they're going to utilize him along with Andy Dalton, and how they're going to try to get better this week. As far as the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, to me, is probably one of the hottest quarterbacks in the league, and he's only a rookie. That's got to be something that the Commanders are going to utilize even more this week against the Panthers. His legs, his arm, Terry McLaurin. Like, this team is on fire offensively. Defensively, I don't think they're up to par, but, again, their offense kind of carries this team so far. We'll see when they face a tougher matchup. I like the Baltimore Ravens. They kind of did a good job against them. Still came with a loss. But in this game, this is where they kind of turn it back around. I think that they are going to get the better of the Panthers, and the Commanders get the W.
All right. Just a couple more left over here. We got the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers here. Rematch of the Super Bowl. In Kansas City, again, not looking very good, but still pulling off the victories here. Are they going to play the same here and then face a hungry 49ers team who can finish now? Because that's the thing that happened in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
it's
getting healthier,
that's
too.
the story that's been happening this season. That's one thing that they're definitely going to focus on in this game here. So I think San Francisco kind of has the Chiefs where they kind of want them right now. If they, Patrick Mahomes is playing very poorly. They don't have major weapons here, wide receiving core. So San Francisco getting healthier on top of it too. Like we've mentioned, nobody on the defensive side getting pass pressure besides, Nick Bosa. That's an issue for San Francisco. But overall, I think San Francisco playing at home, I think they have enough to beat Kansas City here, especially with the way they've been playing. If Kansas City continues here, this is going to be one of those teams they're going to lose here too. So I like the 49ers.
Yeah, 49ers, and like we mentioned before, like they're getting healthier. Like we all know that Jordan Mason sustained a AC joint sprain last week, but he's trying to work through it. He was limited in practice today. It's more of a pain management issue. So I think as the week goes, he'll start to feel a little bit better. Most likely will play. Interesting news, Ricky Parasol has now practiced in full. A guy who went through some craziness with a chest injury, got shot.
Yeah, got shot.
And it was somehow miraculously be able to come back, not only already, but the fact that he's a full participant right now in this season is insane to me. A rookie who shows promise. I really hope that he gets involved in this game. I mean, because it would just be icing on the cake for the 49ers. But this team is also coming in pretty darn healthy. The Chiefs are, but the Chiefs really aren't playing that great of football, especially offensively. The Chiefs' defense also isn't as good as it once was last year. So I think the Niners, like Jim was mentioning, I think they got them right where they want them. I think the Niners end up getting this W and giving the Chiefs their first loss.
All right, here we go. The Jets and the Pittsburgh Steelers here for Sunday Night Football. Jets, what kind of an impact will Devontae Adams have again? Just
he's
like
going to
with
play.
Amari
We
Cooper,
know that.
they said he's going to play. But I think a key factor here, too, is I think the relationship that Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams have is going to be that's going to be helping the factor here with whether part of the playbook that he knows. I think even Aaron could just be like, hey, man, go do this, blah, blah, blah. And then with the release that Devontae Adams has, he can make anybody, knocked out of their feet here and then take off and be open and down the field, and Aaron Rodgers can get the ball to him. So I think this is a big factor for them going into Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh with Russell Wilson now and with their ability to run the football consistently, now they can get the passing attack going on top of it.
Yeah.
And with that defense, too, I think the way they've been playing, too, on top of it, it's going to be a tough battle here for the Jets here. And I'm not exactly convinced on this offense here, how they've been spitting and sputtering. I know Devontae Adams is going to make a difference, but is it going to happen just like this week against a tough Pittsburgh defense? I don't know about that. So I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers at home.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are going to end up picking the Jets just based off the fact that Devontae Adams is now there.
Yep.
And I get it. Like, I think over time that offense will be really tough to stop, but he's so new there that I just feel like I don't think he's going to be on the field as much as people think. He'll be out there from time to time, but I think it'll be in limited capacity. He's definitely hitting the playbook right now, trying to learn as much as possible until we get to Sunday. But I don't know how much of that is going to sink in. So He will be involved, but I don't think it's going to be enough to kind of take over the Steeler team, which their defense has been playing really good football. They've been very physical, have been in everybody's faces, and creating that immense pressure with T.J. Watt and a couple of linebackers, Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig, who stepped up last week, really kind of just taking over that other side of the defense. Russell Wilson, we've all been wondering when he starts. This is the week, and this is the week where he proves to everybody that he deserved to be the week 1 starter if it had not been for that calf strain. A guy that actually is going to throw the ball and get the receivers involved, and I think that's going to be the difference. I would say this, if Fields was still quarterbacking, I would pick the Jets in this one. But the fact that Russell Wilson is in there, I think he's going to give them a better way to put points on the board and move this offense up and down the field. I got to go with the Steelers in this one. And I also got to mention that the Jets' offensive line has not been playing up to par. Mm-hmm. When it comes to run blocking, they seem to do a pretty good job of pass protection. Rodgers getting hit every single week, and that just can't happen. We've seen him get up a little slowly against the Bills, and hopefully that doesn't continue, but that's got to be an area of concern for the Jets. I think the Steelers are licking their chops in this one. They're going to try to get to Rodgers as much as possible. But in the end, I think the Steelers get another W.
Yeah, I agree. All right, next we got Monday Night Football, 2 games. It's the Harbaugh night here. Jim Harbaugh plays with his team here, and John Harbaugh too as well. The Baltimore Ravens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is first. This is going to be a really tough matchup here, but the way Baltimore is playing now after their 0-2 start, they're really running on all cylinders. They're utilizing Derrick Henry here. I think he's going to be a big factor in this one. I think it's just overall, Tampa Bay's going to be fighting. They're going to play tough too. Baker Mayfield's playing really well, but I think that might just be the deciding factor on the opposite side here with Derrick Henry and the 1-2 punch of Lamar and Derrick. I think might be too much here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and that defense. So I like the Baltimore Ravens.
This is another one of those great games that everybody should be tuning into. The Ravens and the Buccaneers, 2 teams that are playing at a high level, offensively, defensively. This is going to be a very tough matchup for both teams. I would not be surprised if it goes either way at all. And I do really like what the Ravens have been doing, especially Derrick Henry now getting, in line and really kind of taking off with the football, running the hell out of it. And then the Ravens are able to capitalize off of Derrick Henry's runs, playing good defense. The Buccaneers, on the other hand, they're another team that can strike quick, can strike fast with all the weapons that Baker Mayfield has at his disposal. And the fact that it doesn't matter if Rachaad White is out because they have a rookie by the name of Bucky Irving and another running back who was undrafted free agent from Syracuse is making some waves there. Had over 100 yards last week. But, man, I feel like, and the defense for the Buccaneers hasn't been playing up to par. They need to play better. But in Tampa Bay, I feel like this is one of those matchups where it's going to end up being a little bit of a shootout. And I think the Buccaneers are well equipped to handle that shootout. I'm going to go with the home team here, and I'm going to go with the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield.
All right, next, finally here, we've got the Los Angeles Chargers and the Arizona Cardinals. Chargers, again, pulled out a victory last week here. I was just looking at the 2 teams again in Arizona. I mean, yes, they've been doing better offensively. And keeping it tight. I think this is going to be a close matchup here, but I'm not exactly sold on Arizona still. I'm going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers here just because I think I trust Justin Herbert a little bit more on this one.
Yeah, and nobody can trust either team.
Yeah,
neither team has given anybody a reason to trust them. But here's the thing is the Chargers, they're going to continue to run the football like they have been and be physical and then the defense, like people were mentioning, oh, well, they need corner and everything in the trade scenarios, but I don't think so. I think they're still playing good football on the defensive side. For the Cardinals, they've been kind of like a surprise to a lot of people throughout the league, and I feel like their defense is playing well above what I thought they were capable of, and their offense with Kyler Murray and And the fact that they drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., who's really kind of come on strong as the year progresses. Mark Wilson is another name to mention. A guy that was a rookie last year is now making a bigger splash this year. I really like the backfield that they have with James Conner and Trey Benson. I look for them to kind of make a big splash in this game. But I really like the ability that Kyler Murray brings with his mobility. I think that's going to play a big part in this game. And I'm going to go with the Arizona Cardinals in this one.
All right, there you go. There's all the picks. Week 7 coming up. And just like that, we're just about getting closer to that trade deadline. So we'll follow those stories as we go. We're hearing more and more rumors right now, even as we speak. So keep it tight. And we're going to enjoy the games this weekend. Joe, tell everybody one more time how they can find this show here if they haven't found it yet during the live show.
Just like Jim said, keep it tight and keep it right. You know what I'm saying?
Keep it right. That is my motto, Joe.
If you are new to the show, if you're tuning in now, whatever the case may be, do us a huge favor. It does help our channel out a lot, and we really do appreciate all the know-it-alls out there for sure. Head over to YouTube for us. Hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit the thumbs up while you're there. And don't forget to share it with all your family and friends that love talking football. That's what this show was built on. That's what this show was about. We are the best NFL talk show out there and the most interactive you'll find, for sure. And we want to prove it to everybody out there. So make sure you invite all your friends and family members to tune in. And we will see you guys next week, Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Join us next week from 8 till 10 Wednesday night for more Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.